Chapter 2434. Vincent didn't attack first either. From Chun Zhao's previous attacks, he knew that Chun Zhao was far more powerful than him. So, before Chun Zhao's magic was used up, all his attacks would just be humiliating himself. Chun Zhao studied Vincent and suddenly thought of a possibility. Chun Zhao's domain suddenly expanded. Instantly, a smile appeared on Chun Zhao's face. Vincent frowned. He didn't understand why Chun Zhao was smiling, but that smile gave him a bad feeling. Are you really your real body? Or rather, do you really have a physical body? Chun Zhao suddenly asked a strange question. Vincent frowned. Of course I'm real. Is there a problem? Really? Then what about the sea snake hiding at the bottom of the ship? What's your relationship with it? Vincent's expression changed, and he suddenly charged at Chun Zhao. However, Chun Zhao lifted his foot and kicked Vincent away. Seems like my guess is right. You're not your real body, and you're not a real life form either. Chun Zhao had used different elemental attacks in the previous few attacks, but Vincent could recover every time. In the last time, Chun Zhao had even vaporized him with a terrifying electric current. But he could always recover. That was why Chun Zhao was suspicious. What made Chun Zhao think this was because he'd seen the metal dragon, Udal Loken. Udal Loken was still so calm when facing Zhang Tianyi and Bifla, who had overwhelming power. Even when he'd been completely melted by Bifla, he hadn't forgotten to tease Zhang Tianyi. How similar was Udal Loken at that time to Vincent at this moment? This made Chun Zhao's thoughts connect. Maybe the Vincent standing before him wasn't his real body at all. After Chun Zhao completely enveloped the cruise ship and the nearby sea, he discovered that at the bottom of the cruise ship, right below where Vincent was standing, there was a huge sea snake wandering around. Chun Zhao finally confirmed that the sea snake was Vincent's real body. As expected, when Chun Zhao revealed Vincent's real body, the sea snake immediately wanted to escape. But then, the sea snake realized that the water had bound him. It even pulled him out from the bottom of the ship. The sea snake kept resisting. However, he was unable to break free from the restraints of the seawater. The seawater lifted him out of the water and then stuffed him into the hole that Chun Zhao had blasted open. The originally insufferably arrogant Vincent seemed to have melted. Big Del and Homesius were shocked to see a giant sea snake suddenly burrowing in from outside. The sea serpent was too huge. They even wondered if this thing was considered a sea snake. It was a giant sea snake that was more than 30 meters long and had a body diameter of nearly 1.5 meters. No, it should be called a sea monster. Even though Deep Blue was at least 6 to 7 meters tall when fully extended, Deep Blue was still able to reach a height of 7 meters. But in front of him, he was just a little loach. A smile appeared on Chun Zhao's face, but the sea serpent was not so happy. It frantically ran away, trying to escape from Chun Zhao and the cruise ship. However, it was impossible to escape from the ship. Therefore, he could only find a place to hide. What Chun Zhao didn't expect was that the giant sea snake could change colors. It could even perfectly blend into its hiding spot. I love playing hide and seek. Are you done hiding? I'm going to start looking soon. Actually, there was no need to look, because no matter how it hid, it was still within the range of Chun Zhao's small world. All of its actions were just to deceive itself. Chun Zhao lifted a finger and pointed at a warehouse. The warehouse was a few cabins away from Chun Zhao. But suddenly, an electric arc shot out from Chun Zhao's finger. It pierced through the cabins directly. With a loud, strange cry, the sea snake frantically ran out. The camouflage on its body flickered in and out. It was very unstable. Hurry up and hide. The second round is starting. Boom. The sea snake was forced out by Chun Zhao again. Adele and Homesius finally saw it. Chun Zhao was playing with the sea snake. Or rather, he was torturing it. At this moment, it vividly displayed the saying that fists were the strongest. Soon, Chun Zhao was tired of playing. The dark magma spread over and dragged the sea snake before Chun Zhao. Tell me, what ability is that? Just then, the Vincent that the sea snake had transformed into appeared again. Mirage, Vincent said. Illusion? Chun Zhao asked in surprise. It's fake, but it's not completely fake. I can use any material to build a body that's like flesh and blood, even if it's just air. Chen Zhao was surprised by this answer. It wasn't because the sea snake's ability was special. It was because Chen Zhao didn't expect it to answer his question so easily. Then what's your background? What's your goal? I'm working for my master. Then tell me about your master, Roland said with a smile. Vincent glanced at Chen Zhao. He's a demon, a pure and powerful one. And then? Are you going to tell me not to seek death, and that your master won't let me go? I didn't say that. Also, my master told me that if I'm subdued, I should tell them everything I know. The person who can subdue me is definitely much stronger than me. All my resistance is futile. Your master is very wise. Chen Zhao looked at Vincent and then at the sea snake. Then tell me. Don't hide anything. I don't know my master's name. To the outside, I always call him boss. Privately, I call him boss. I'm not interested in how you guys interact. My master is already very old. He's almost at the end of his life, but he doesn't want to die just like that. So he wants to use human technology to prolong his life. Human technology? Chen Zhao couldn't help but glance at Homesius. Yes, through human technology, Vincent said. It's indeed done, but the effects aren't as expected. Chen Zhao suddenly thought of the information he'd gotten from Isaac when he'd communicated with him. Those mutated octopuses were created from your master's cells? He used his own cells to create those mutated octopuses. Then, after they absorb enough life force, they return to your master and give the life they absorb back to your master, right? Homesius was astonished. In fact, he didn't even know what the purpose of his research was before this. Only when Chen Zhao pointed out did he understand his investor's intentions. You know more than I thought. Chapter 2435. I can't help it, Chen Zhao said helplessly. I'm responsible for all the trouble you've caused. At the same time, Chen Zhao's gaze landed on Homesius. Homesius' heart skipped a beat. Only then did Adele understand the cause and effect of everything. Her biggest mistake was bringing Chen Zhao to her husband. If I asked you to take me to your master, would you? I can't find him. Every time master wants to see me, he summons me directly. I don't know his exact location. Fine. Chen Zhao was a bit disappointed. Although you're very cooperative, I still have to kill you. Vincent sighed. Please don't give me too much pain. Chen Zhao was surprised. Would he accept death so calmly? Chen Zhao raised his right arm and was about to attack. Suddenly, the sea serpent's body twisted. Fuck! I got tricked. Chen Zhao charged forward, trying to catch the sea snake. But when he stretched out his hand, he grabbed nothing but air. The great sea serpent's body had already faded away. He was summoned away. Chen Zhao rubbed his forehead. He'd actually been tricked. It turned out that the great sea serpent was trying to stall for time. Since the culprit had escaped, Chen Zhao could only vent his anger on Homesius and Adele. You too, if I kill you now, you won't have any complaints, right? Adele looked at Homesius nervously. Homesius was calmer. It was impossible for them to win, not to mention risking their lives against Chen Zhao. Even Deep Blue, the octopus behind Chen Zhao. This would allow them to return to the most basic form of carbonization. Hormetheus's thoughts spun quickly. Finally, Hormetheus thought of an idea. How can you let us go? That's impossible. You're also the main culprit, and your wife isn't a good person either. That's why you have to die, unless you can be summoned away like that sea serpent. Is it really impossible? Why don't you pay for your lives? $100 million, and I'll pretend this never happened. Hometheus rolled his eyes. If he had $100 million, he wouldn't need to use it for research. I don't have money, but I have a way to solve this mutant octopus incident. What is it? I was the one who created the mutated octopus. Of course, I have a way to deal with them, Homesius said. And I have a way to help you find the culprit behind this. Oh, Chen Zhao raised an eyebrow. Although Homesius might have said that just to stall for time. However, his suggestion caught Chen Zhao's interest. Tell me, how are you going to deal with those mutant octopuses? You guys should have released quite a number of them, right? About 1 billion octopus eggs, Homesius said. Chen Zhao snorted. 1 billion octopus eggs were quite a lot. Of course, out of 1 billion octopus eggs, less than 1 in 1,000 would survive and grow up. The mutant octopus has a backtracking characteristic. As long as we use this characteristic to create a kind of signal device and change the mutant octopus's backtracking location, it will work. You're an expert in marine biology and marine mollusks. Do you know how to make electronic equipment? I'm not the one who makes the equipment. I only provide ideas and solutions. It's not difficult. Homesius paused. I've done experiments in a lab before. The mutant octopuses are very sensitive to infrasound of a specific frequency. As long as there's a device that can release powerful infrasound enough, we can summon all the mutant octopuses back. Chen Zhao had to admit that Homesius's method was indeed feasible. At least, it was reasonable. Even an outsider like Chen Zhao felt that it was a good idea. Aren't you afraid that I'll burn the bridge after I know the method? Although I've told you the method, only I know the frequency of the infrasound. You might be able to find a suitable frequency through repeated attempts, but it would be a waste of time. I've heard that several coastal cities on the West Coast have sealed off their coastlines. Every day they seal off their coastlines is a huge loss to the major coastal cities. Can you determine how long it will take to find a suitable infrasound frequency? My method can be implemented in 3 days at most, Homesius said confidently. Then I can also kill you after you solve the problem. I can help you find Vincent and his master, Homesius said. It's nothing more than using the octopuses to backtrack. Sir, Vincent's master isn't an idiot. He definitely knows the mutant octopuses better than me. Maybe he also knows how to use infrasound to set up an infrasound device in one or a few places and then summon the mutant octopuses back. If you set up a tracking device on one or a few mutant octopuses, you might not find anything in the end. Then what method do you have? Sir, you haven't agreed to my request. Chen Zhao rubbed his chin. After thinking for a while, he said, You've caused quite a lot of trouble this time. I won't be happy if I let you go like this. This yacht will be our compensation. Is that okay? Homesius asked. Is this yacht under your name? No. Then how are you going to compensate me? This yacht isn't under anyone's name, at least not nominally. If you have the means, you can find a shipbuilding company to register it, and then transfer the yacht to your own name under the guise of purchasing it. How do you know so much? Have you worked in this industry before? Homesius shook his head. Because I want to do that too, so I found a professional to understand it. I just haven't had the time to do it yet. To be honest, Chen Zhao was tempted by Homesius' suggestion. After all, this yacht was very expensive. The battle just now had caused some damage to the hull, but it wasn't a big deal. He could spend 10 to 20 million to fix it up. If he erased some of the traces here, it would be a real luxurious yacht. In principle, I agree to your conditions, but I can't give you any guarantees. If you want me to sign a contract or swear, I can satisfy you. But neither contract nor oath has any binding force on me. As long as you agree, Homesius said calmly. It seemed like he trusted Chen Zhao completely. Of course, he wasn't that naive. Actually, this kind of mutual compromise had some reservations. Perhaps Chen Zhao hadn't completely given up on killing them, and Homesius might not solve the problem honestly. Perhaps he had left behind other backup plans. Chapter 2436. Of course, Chen Zhao wouldn't let Homesius and Adele go directly. First, he had to get someone to take over the ship. West, I'll give you my current location. Send someone over. Remember to bring Giselle and Jalik. Chen Zhao called West. Bring more people. There's a lot of work here. Bring Henry and the others too. Henry and his thugs were official members of the supernatural organization now. Like Klaus's lightning team, they were all normal people, but they'd come into contact with the supernatural world. Plus, they respected Chen Zhao. Now, they saw themselves as members of the supernatural organization. Of course, not all of them stayed in the organization. Half of them were in Los Angeles and relied on the organization's funds to open convenience stores, restaurants, or other businesses. Other than creating additional income for the supernatural organization, they also provided limited intelligence to the organization. They couldn't say anything about the supernatural organization's existence or relationship with the organization. Also, they couldn't become street thugs anymore. Because of his awakening, Henry continued to stay in the organization. He was the organization's internal affairs manager. He was mainly in charge of the remaining half and some internal affairs. Occasionally, they'd go and help with some normal supernatural events. For example, this ship needed to be cleaned and cleaned. Clearly, they couldn't find a regular cleaning company. They could only find their own people. A while later, West arrived with a large group of people. Not just Henry and his men, but also Pamela and her evil spirit army. West walked up to Chun Zhao. "President, what's going on here?" "They're the main culprits of the mutant octopus incident," Chun Zhao said, pointing at Homesius. Chun Zhao roughly told him what had happened. West now understood why Chun Zhao had asked Giselle Ajalik to come. They were both good with machines, especially Giselle. She could control them. "Oh, remember to arrange a luxurious suite for them," Chun Zhao said. West knew what Chun Zhao meant. The so-called luxurious suite was actually the organization's dungeon. The dungeon in the headquarters wasn't creepy, but it wasn't luxurious either. However, all the prisoners were spiritualists. 2 days later, West reported to Chun Zhao that the mutant octopus incident had basically calmed down. First of all, Prometheus had stopped releasing mutated octopus eggs, solving the root of the problem. Secondly, the vast majority of the mutant octopuses had already been recalled through the so-called infrasonic wave device. At the same time, the mutant octopuses had been fished out and then incinerated. Chun Zhao also heaved a sigh of relief. After all, the mutant octopus incident wasn't just a single city's problem anymore. Even the Environmental Protection Department was involved in the investigation. The environmentalists felt that it was the excessive destruction of the ecological balance by human beings that led to the retaliation of nature. This caused the security department and even the higher-ups to put pressure on the supernatural organization. Chun Zhao finally didn't have to run around so busily anymore. In fact, this was mainly because Chun Zhao basically didn't care about small matters. In fact, the supernatural organization received missions almost every day. However, these matters were all taken over by others. For example, Klaus and his lightning team were currently on a mission abroad. Of course, their mission was not an overseas mission. Instead, the person who caused the incident ran to another country after committing the crime in Los Angeles. That was why Klaus and the lightning squad gave chase. Now that he was free, Chun Zhao was extremely happy. Fei Lai also continued her work. Most of the children in the family were sent to school, except for 5-year-old Sindora and 6-year-old Myra. The other children, including 7-year-old Elijah and Binance, 8-year-old Ferentia, 11-year-old Kilo, and 12-year-old Didola, were all sent to school. Only little Jerlin, little Larissa, Sindora, and Myra were left at home. The house was much quieter too, including Chun Zhao. The remaining children weren't used to this feeling of emptiness. Thankfully, they didn't board at school. Dash and Elementary couldn't board either. They still went home at night. Chun Zhao didn't pick them up. He still let them go home by themselves for the first time. However, Chun Zhao gave each of them a bicycle. Moreover, Dash and Elementary was less than 3 kilometers away from Mirror Lake. A one-way bike ride would take less than 15 minutes. This wasn't an unacceptable distance. Moreover, if Chun Zhao drove his family car to pick them up, it would probably be even more difficult for them to blend in with the other students. At night, the whole family arrived. However, Elijah and Binance quickly integrated into school life. They excitedly talked about their classmates and how they got along with each other. Ferentia and Didola were more cheerful. They had a good time at school too. Kilo was an enhancer, but he was an extremely introverted child. He probably didn't make any new friends today. Chun Zhao wasn't in a hurry to intervene. Even the most introverted children could make friends in school. As the saying went, birds of a feather flocked together. In a school, there would always be a few introverted and introverted children. Then they would be attracted to each other. Perhaps they would be lifelong friends. Chun Zhao vaguely remembered that he wasn't that sociable in elementary school either. However, he could always make friends. After dinner, the children continued to play and fool around as usual. Chun Zhao sat on the wooden rack in the front yard and fished. Just then, the housekeeper spoke. "Master, there's a guest." The housekeeper system could identify the identity of the visitor by scanning the license plate. Since it didn't say who the visitor was, the license plate probably wasn't in the housekeeper system's database. Chun Zhao put down the fishing rod and stood up to walk to the door. A black SUV was parked outside the door. Seeing Chun Zhao, the person in the car immediately got out. Chun Zhao saw that it was Yang Guo and his two senior brothers, Dao Er and Dao San. "Hello, Mr. Chun." Dao Er and Dao San were quite proactive. As for Yang Guo, he was a bit awkward. "Hello, fellow cultivators. How have you been in Los Angeles?" "It's pretty good. We even went to Hollywood. Also, we met a production team looking for an extra. We went in and asked for one," Dao Er said straightforwardly. "Let's go in and sit." "No thanks," Dao Er said. "Your house is really beautiful and has good feng shui. If we go in, it'll probably be corrupted by capitalism." God King of the Nine Heavens. Chapter 24:37. Dao Er and Dao San clearly weren't here to get to know Chun Zhao. There was no need for them to make friends with Chun Zhao. After all, in terms of seniority, they were all one generation lower than Chun Zhao. In this era, few people cared about seniority, but there were still people who cared about seniority. They weren't here as guests. They were here to accompany Yang Guo. So, the person in charge this time should be Yang Guo. "Hi, Yang. Chun Zhao, I have something to ask you." "Are you asking me? Were you asking me?" "Yes." Yang Guo took a deep breath and said slowly, "I want to know the real situation in Bermuda. I've never been to Bermuda." "How would I know?" Chun Zhao asked. "Let me put it another way. If the psionic team attacks Bermuda, what are their chances of winning?" 1%, Chun Zhao said. Even if Chun Zhao was telling the truth, Yang Guo and the psionic team might not believe him. They were enemies now, so they wouldn't believe anything Chun Zhao said. "Junior, listen to me and go back. If you stay, you'll die," Dao Er advised. But Yang Guo didn't back down. He stared at Chun Zhao, who was leaning against the door frame with a smile on his face. He knew why Yang Guo was here this time. Actually, he wanted to get some information about Bermuda. Unfortunately, he was wrong. He didn't have any information about Bermuda at all. Even if he did, he wouldn't tell him in detail. Of course, it would be a good result if he could coax Yang Guo away. But seeing Yang Guo's stubbornness, he probably wouldn't give up no matter what he said. Since you don't know the situation in Bermuda, how can you be so sure that we'll lose? With your attitude, I'd throw you into the lake and drown you if you were someone else. Luckily, you have a good background and people protecting you. Chun Zhao glanced at Yang Guo. "Anyway, I've already said it. Your life and death have nothing to do with me." Chun Zhao glanced at Dao Er and Dao San. "You two, when you return, send my regards to old Zhang. As for him, I don't think you should care about his life or death. If he wants to die, then let him." Dao Er and Dao San really wanted to wash their hands of this. However, they had watched Yang Guo grow up. Although he was their junior brother, he was actually around the same age as their sons and grandsons. How could he really watch him die? Chun Zhao and Yang Guo were neither relatives nor friends, and they had old grudges. Naturally, his words were vicious and merciless, but the two of them couldn't bring themselves to say that they should just let it go. With Yang Guo's stubborn temper, if they said that if he didn't listen, they would expel him from the sect. Yang Guo might really leave with the crime of betraying the sect. Even Zhang Tianyi didn't dare to provoke Yang Guo like this, so they naturally didn't dare to. But Chun Zhao didn't have such concerns. Yang Guo's expression naturally did not look too good. "But I say, if you want to die, just die. Don't drag your wife to die with you. Bermuda is really a dangerous place." Chun Zhao had only met Akra Bumon once, but he had a good impression of her. At least, apart from Yang Guo, Chun Zhao had a good relationship with the people from Dragon Tiger Mountain. Yang Guo was angry and annoyed, but Chun Zhao's words left a knot in his heart. There was no doubt that Bermuda was dangerous. Was he really going to let his wife take the risk with him? Although Akra Bumon wasn't a member of the psionic team, but this time, he was going to conquer Bermuda, and his wife wanted to go with him. Yang Guo understood that Akra Bumon was worried about him. Yang Guo did not intend to let Akra Bumon take the risk, but Akra Bumon was adamant. No matter how Yang would try to persuade her, he couldn't get her to give up on this idea. Then, because Toddy Belster had shown her strength, it was only a matter of time. This made him feel that he had a good chance of success in this expedition to Bermuda. That was why he agreed to Acrobuman's request. He thought about how powerful the psionic ability team was. He also had Toddy Belster as a strong support. The expedition to Bermuda this time should be in the bag. With the addition of Acrobumon, victory was almost within their grasp. However, when he heard Qin Zhao's words, he felt a chill run down his spine. This made him hesitate again. Boomon is already an adult dragon. She can protect herself. I've been a dragon slayer before. Every dragon I killed was an adult. None of them were young. Do you think they can't protect themselves? Qin Zhao looked at Yang Guo with a cold smile. Some abilities determine whether someone can protect themselves, not how strong they are, but how strong their opponent is. Plus, I've seen Xiao Longnu before. She's not weak, but she's not that strong either. Yang Guo looked at Xiao Longnu coldly. Qin Zhao's words were not pleasant to hear, but Yang Guo understood what he meant. There was something in Bermuda that was more powerful than Acrobumon, and much more powerful. Yang Guo did not want to believe this, but there was a voice in his heart that kept telling him, "Don't let your wife take the risk with you. That would kill her." Yang Guo left, somewhat dejected. When he came here, he was actually looking for confidence. He wanted to see Qin Zhao respond to him with other attitudes. For example, mocking him or threatening him. But Qin Zhao's attitude disappointed him. Qin Zhao's tone was calm, as if he was stating a fact. This made Yang Guo even more uneasy. Was there really such a terrifying thing in Bermuda? The car didn't go far. Qin Zhao was about to return to his room. Suddenly, a figure appeared before him. Dao San. Master, what are you doing? Don't you know that scaring people can scare people to death? Mr. Qin, I want to entrust you. Dao San looked at Qin Zhao helplessly, his face full of bitter smiles. Entrust me with what? Qin Zhao looked at him curiously. This shouldn't be Dao San's real body, right? Qin Zhao poked Dao San's body. Don't move. This is a spell. It's not my real body, but it has my consciousness. Fine. Qin Zhao retracted his arm, but his eyes were still filled with interest. I want you to help me bring the couple back. Qin Zhao looked at Dao San. Sorry, I can't do it. Mr. Qin, Grandmaster has already promised that as long as you can help, he'll pay any price. I'm not a kindergarten teacher who has to watch over a stubborn couple. I've already said everything I need to say, but they still want to die. I can't do anything about it. If you want to use force, I don't need to do it myself. You two are many times stronger than Yang Guo. Is there a need for an outsider like me to do it? 9 Heavens Divine Emperor. Chapter 2438. If it was someone else, even if they had nothing to do with Qin would be willing to help. But Yang Guo was different. He had betrayed Qin. No one could deny that. It was Yang Guo's own promise. He had promised Qin one thing. Even if he had rejected him, Qin wouldn't be so angry. At most, he would extort some benefits from Zhang Tianyi, and the matter would be over. But Yang Guo had thrown himself into his enemy's arms. Qin couldn't accept that. Now, Zhang Tianyi wanted him to take care of Yang Guo like a child. Did he have nothing better to do? Therefore, Qin rejected Dao San's request without hesitation. Zhang Tianyi had called Qin a few times before, but Qin rejected him without hesitation. This time, Qin wouldn't give Dao San face either. Moreover, it wasn't a matter of face. Qin was already being merciful by not throwing Yang Guo into the sea to feed the sharks. Qin had to stick to Yang Guo's cold, but Dao San sighed. His body turned into a puff of smoke and disappeared. He wasn't surprised by Qin's rejection. It was just a test. He didn't have much hope in the first place. Qin returned to his fishing post and continued his cultivation life. Beep. Just then, a car horn sounded outside again. Qin's face darkened. Anyone who honked at his door was someone he knew. As expected, the butler system told Qin who it was. Hi, Qin. James was standing in front of the door with a smile. Qin's smile stiffened. The butler had told him that it was James. However, he didn't tell Qin that James had brought a motorcade. Are you planning to move? Qin stared at James with a dark expression. He didn't understand what James was planning. It seemed like James wanted to do something in his house. But he didn't tell Qin beforehand, right? Qin, do me a favor. My new movie is about to be released, but it was rejected by the production company during the screening. The market research isn't ideal either. James looked at Chin bitterly. The production company wants me to reshoot some scenes and re-edit them in 2 weeks. Some of the scenes require a mansion. I've already found a mansion and signed a contract with the owner. I was planning to go there to film, but the owner stood me up. I had no choice but to bring the crew to you. Chen Zhao looked at James with a bitter expression. You're right. You're going to shoot a movie in my house. Chen finally understood why James didn't tell him anything. He planned to cut the Gordian knot and bring the crew over first, then pretend to be pitiful. However, he had to admit that his method was indeed very effective. He was quite familiar with James. Now that he was in trouble, he needed help. Chen Zhao really couldn't say no. How long will it take? Chen asked. Not many, just a few dozen shots, and all of them are in the living room and the garden. There's no need to use other parts of your house, and it should be done in one night. Chen had been involved in filming before, so he knew that a few dozen scenes weren't a lot. A movie might have thousands or even tens of thousands of shots. Even after editing, there would still be 2,000 to 3,000 scenes left. So, a few dozen shots really weren't a lot. The time needed to shoot dozens of shots was only a few hours. However, the most troublesome part was the set. It would take at least twice as long. In other words, it would take at least a day for the set to be set up, filmed, and wrapped up. Chun, I'm begging you. This is my second movie. If I mess it up, I'll be done for. I'll have to go to San Fernando Valley to film. Fine. I'll tell Fei Lai. Chun finally relented. Also, give me a close-up shot of my beer brand for 1 second. Sure, no problem. James was overjoyed. Chun went into the house and told Fei Lai. Fei Lai, James needs help now. I've already promised him. What do you think? You already promised him. How can I say no? Fei Lai rolled her eyes. Whatever. We'll stay at Mingwei Villa for a few days. Don't look at what James said. They only needed the scenes in the living room and yard. In fact, if he had other ideas, he would have other requests. Should he cooperate or not? Also, even if it was just the scenes in the living room and yard, it would be difficult to stay in the 2 days of filming. Would the children at home delay the filming? Or would it affect the family's rest and entertainment? So, temporarily changing places was the best choice. Okay, Chin nodded. At the same time, he had the children return to their rooms to pack up. They would stay at Mingwei Villa for a few days. Chin went out to talk to James again. James, Fei Lai, the kids, and I will stay at Mingwei Villa for a few days. I'll leave Mirror Lake to you. Also, you've obtained the 3rd level of authority in the butler system. Thank you. Thank Fei Lai for me too, James said gratefully. Oh, can I borrow your car? Sure. I won't take the keys with me, but don't damage my car, Chin reminded. If you're tired, you can find an empty room to rest, but I don't want other people to stay in my house. Of course. I promise you that I'll love your house as much as my own. After I'm done, I'll treat you to a meal. Also, when will the movie be released? It was originally scheduled to be released on February 14th, but now the producers are very dissatisfied with my edited version, so it may be delayed. James sighed. Although he was famous now, many people in Hollywood said that his fame was the peak. His next movie might fall from the peak. So, James urgently needed a second movie to prove himself. Your second movie is a romance? There shouldn't be any genre other than romance that could be scheduled for February 14th, Valentine's Day, right? Yes. Didn't you pay attention to my new movie? The trailer of my new movie has been out for a while. I've been a bit busy, Chin said awkwardly. Okay, but you definitely have to watch my new movie. Okay, as long as it's suitable, I'll bring my family to support your new movie. If James' new movie was G-rated or PG-rated, Chin would bring his family to watch it. G-rated movies were suitable for all ages. PG-rated movies had some violence and nudity, but it wouldn't affect the sensory experience of minors. Chapter 2439. Fei Lai took the kids to Moon Villa first. Chun Zhao stayed behind to talk to James and see if they needed help. The people in James's crew were all experienced, but setting up was very complicated. Most of the time, Chun Zhao felt tired just watching it. James could rent a manor like this outside. not to mention whether he could find it. The rental fee per day was $100,000 to $200,000. Of course, there weren't many manors of this size in Los Angeles. Most of the owners were unreachable too. They didn't need $100,000. This was the manor that James had rented before. They'd agreed on it and even signed a contract. In the end, the other party fell out with him, and James couldn't do anything about it. If James dared to sue the other party with the contract, the other party's lawyers would play with him for 3 years. There was a law in America that if a movie had a lawsuit, it couldn't be shown during the lawsuit period. So, even though James had been tricked, he still had to grit his teeth and take it. If James wanted to sue the other party after the movie stopped screening, the other party could say that James didn't come on the day of the appointment. Here, not every rich person knew how to take advantage of loopholes. But rich people had their own lawyers who knew how to take advantage of loopholes. "Jane, Rodale, come here." Just then, a man and a woman walked over. The man was handsome and the woman was pretty. This was Chun Zhao's first impression. "Hello, Jane, our female lead," James introduced. James introduced Mander Rodale, the male lead. "Chun, the owner of this manor, and my friend. He's a rich man." Actually, Holo Jane and Mandy Rodale had been nearby the whole time. They didn't come over. They were waiting for James to call them over so they could get to know Chun Zhao. They weren't A-listers in Hollywood. Mandy Rodale was better. He had some fame in Hollywood. At least, Chun Zhao had an impression of him. Before Holo Jane acted in James's movie, she was just a passerby. She didn't have any fame. Her conditions were outstanding, but there were at least 1,000 people with her conditions in Hollywood. James chose them because they were cheap, had some acting skills, and suited the characters. At the same time, they were easier to control than those big stars. James's first movie had already pushed him to the top. However, he was not considered an A-list director. Compared to many big stars, he was still at a disadvantage. If there was a conflict, it was likely that James would be the one to compromise. Unless it was someone at Steven's level, he dared to tell anyone who dared to clash with him on the set to get lost. Holo Jean and Mand Roddle wanted to get to know Chun Zhao, a rich man. For them, networking was very important. There was no doubt that Chun Zhao was rich. Moreover, Chun Zhao was familiar with James. This made them believe that Chun Zhao was worth investing in. Chun Zhao shook hands with the male and female leads. Chun Zhao didn't have the friendliness of the black man. Therefore, the conversation after the handshake was very restrained. "Chun, don't you have servants at home?" "No," Chun Zhao said calmly. "I don't like outsiders interfering with my family and my life." "This manor is huge," Holo exclaimed. She had yet to enter, but just the appearance alone was enough to stun her. There was also the grassland behind him and the mirror-like lake in front of him. On the other side was a lush forest. The manor was like a perfect work of modern technology and nature. Not only is this manor big, but it's also expensive. James had been to Mirror Lake before. He also knew that Chun Zhao's original mansion had been destroyed by the super hurricane Holy Infant. After eating with Chun Zhao and Steven a few times, he knew how much Chun Zhao had invested in the rebuilt manor. Just the transplanting and purchasing of the plants in the yard was more than $500,000. The equipment and housekeeping system were also more than $10 million. He hadn't planned on asking Chun Zhao for help at first. After all, the cost of Chun Zhao's manor was shocking even to him. If anything was damaged during filming, it would be a loss of hundreds of thousands of dollars. Especially Chun Zhao's private wine cellar and personal storage of food ingredients. They were all priceless, high-end, and rare items. If anyone in the crew did anything dirty, it could cause irreparable damage. If he had a choice, James wouldn't even be willing to bring the crew here. Chun Zhao was willing to open up his collection to him when he was a guest. That was a personal friendship. But if it was because of a problem at work that caused Chun Zhao to suffer losses, by then, it would affect their friendship even if Chun Zhao didn't ask for compensation. Thankfully, Chun Zhao didn't think too much. "Chun, let's go in and look at the set." James was still worried. Although the set didn't need to be renovated, the layout would be changed. When Chun Zhao entered the living room, he realized that it was already messy. Chun Zhao's heart ached. He rubbed his forehead. James also noticed it. He yelled at the crew members who were setting up the set. Who left the stuff there? Who left the wrench there? Holo and Romain Roddel's attention was focused on the structure of the huge living room. It was just a living room, but it was filled with modern technology. It even gave people the feeling that they were in a futuristic sci-fi world. From the outside to the inside, the manor had a master-level design style. Okay, I'll leave it to you. James, I'm going to stay at the house by the sea for a few days. Chun Zhao felt that it was better not to see it. If he stayed here, you would only feel heartache. Seeing Chun Zhao leave, James also let out a long sigh. If Chun Zhao was here, it would be really hard for his crew to progress. Director, does this manor cost 20 million? Holo Jean asked curiously. 20 million? Ha! James sneered. Chun invested no less than 100 million into this manor. His friends offered him 300 million, but he still didn't sell. Holo Jean and Romain Roddel couldn't help but gasp. Even if their assets were multiplied by 10 times, they still wouldn't be worth as much as this manor. You can get double the profit, and he still won't sell? No matter how good this manor is, it can't be worth 300 million, right? It's not up to you to decide whether it's worth or not. Chun Zhao really doesn't care about a few hundred million. Chapter 2440. James could probably understand the inner turmoil of these two second- and third-rate celebrities. In fact, when he'd first heard about this, he'd almost lost his breath. He had worked hard for decades, and last year, he had finally achieved some results. Now, he was only worth $20 million. But Chun Zhao actually didn't care about $200 million. If it was anyone else, they wouldn't be able to remain calm. But he also knew that Chun Zhao had a golden egg-laying chicken. Dashin Beer's market share in California had reached 80%. From low to high-end beer, Dashin Beer was basically the only one. Whether it was outside or local beer brands, they were either dead or crippled in California. People would only buy Dashin Beer in supermarkets. They would only choose other beers when they were out of stock. Dashin Beer had already started conquering other states. But due to supply and production restrictions, their market share in other states couldn't increase yet. So, the supermarkets in other states hadn't fully stocked it yet. Only Mars supermarkets in other states could supply Dashin Beer. However, due to the reputation of Dashin Beer, the sales of Dashin Beer in various states were also very good. Dashin Beer wasn't listed, so it didn't release financial reports. But this couldn't stop some financial media from calculating and speculating. James remembered watching a financial program calculating Dashin Beer's income not long ago. The final conclusion was that Dashin Beer could provide its owner with more than $5 billion in after-tax income every year. Mara Supermarkets also didn't release the exact sales volume of Dashin Beer. Therefore, a large portion of Dashin Beer's sales volume hadn't been calculated. If Mara Supermarket sales volume was included, Dashin Beer's annual net profit could be more than $3 billion. When James saw the report, his first thought was, how many popular movies do I have to make to earn $3 billion? He didn't know how much Chun Zhao had, but he knew that Chun Zhao would only get richer. Moreover, his money and assets weren't like those in finance or stocks. Today, it was worth $10 billion. Tomorrow, it would suddenly be worthless. Chun Zhao's assets wouldn't suddenly become worthless because Dashin Beer wasn't a listed company. The amount of money in his bank account would only increase, not decrease. America's annual sales of alcoholic beverages was more than $200 billion. Beer accounted for 70% of the total. In James' mind, if mountain beer could one day be distributed across America and had such an exaggerated market share like in California, how rich would Chun Zhao become? Of course, James' idea was shocking. However, this was almost impossible. That was because the productivity of Dashin Beer was limited. The current situation was basically the limit of Dashin Beer. Move faster, Jane Rodale. You two should go put on your makeup. The whole family settled down in the Bright Moon Villa. Every child found their own room with ease. Chun Zhao jumped into the sea to reminisce with the dolphin family and the 5 great generals. At the same time, he also brought some special ingredients. However, Both the 5 Tiger Generals and the Dolphin family liked Chun Zhao's special ingredients very much. The water quality of the sea was getting better and better. Soaking in the seawater, Chun Zhao felt all the pores in his body relax. He happily breathed in and out the spiritual qi in the seawater. Chun Zhao suddenly frowned. Where did the old man go? The old man was the giant clam that Chun Zhao had discovered in the deep sea. Then Chun Zhao moved it to the nearby sea. The giant clam was more than 1,000 years old. That was why Chun Zhao named the giant clam Old Man. However, Chun Zhao searched around the coastline. He even used the small world to cover the nearby sea. He didn't find any traces of the old man. The giant clam could move on its own. However, ever since Chun Zhao had placed an old turtle's inner core here, the old man didn't go out anymore. Did someone steal it? Chun Zhao's expression darkened. His things had been stolen right in front of his house. Butler, have there been any ships approaching here recently? Chun Zhao asked the butler through his wireless Bluetooth headset. Yes, a large fishing boat appeared in the nearby sea. It belongs to Lassen Fishing Company. Just then, Chun Zhao suddenly felt a high beam shine on the sea. He immediately dove into the sea, but he was very unhappy. This was private waters. If a fishing boat entered their private waters, it would be equivalent to theft. Just then, Chun Zhao felt his body being hung. He reached out and pulled. It was a fishing net. The fishing boat was fishing in this area with a fishing net. Chun Zhao was furious. He tore the net apart. At the same time, he wrapped the net around the boat's propeller. Damn, what's going on? Parak yelled. Why did the boat stop? Captain, it seems like the reef tore the net, and then the net wrapped around the propeller. Fuck, what are you doing? This water isn't deep. Didn't you use the sonar to scan the depth before setting the net? Parak yelled. Hurry up and think of a solution. Captain, the propeller has been wrapped up by the net. We can't do anything now. We can only call for a tugboat, the crew member said with a sad face. Fuck, how much money do we earn from one sea mission? Calling a tugboat costs $1,000 per kilometer. How much do you think it'll cost to tow our boat back to the port? But the net and the propeller must be dead. I don't care. If you can't think of a solution, you can go down and feed the sharks. Parak knew that they could only call for a tugboat now. His heart ached at the thought of having to pay for a tugboat. Captain, there's someone in the water. There's someone in the water. By then, Chun Zhao had already emerged from the water. At the same time, he climbed onto a rope hanging from the side of the boat. Parak was burning with anger. Seeing someone climb onto his boat, he was even more furious. Who are you? Get out. Chun Zhao went up and grabbed Parak's neck, then pinned him to the pole. This is my private sea. You're asking who I am? Did you tell me before your boat? Enter my private sea? A cough. Sir, this is a misunderstanding. Our boat malfunctioned and drifted here. Parak explained while coughing. Chapter 2441. While showing weakness to Chun Zhao, Parak's gaze drifted behind Chun Zhao, hinting at the crew behind Chun Zhao. A crew member slowly approached Chun Zhao with a stick. He raised his arms, wanting to hit the back of Chun Zhao's head. Clang. Instantly, Chun Zhao stumbled a few steps and fell to the ground. He covered his head with one hand and touched his ear with the other. Butler, did you record it? Yes, master. I've recorded everything just now. Parak vaguely felt that something was wrong. Who are you talking to? Chun Zhao didn't answer Parak's question. Instead, he squeezed out the blood he'd prepared and smeared it all over his face. Then he stood up again. You trespassed into my private waters to steal, causing me huge losses, Chun Zhao said calmly. I discovered it and tried to stop it, but you tried to murder me. With that, Chun Zhao suddenly kicked the crew member who'd ambushed him. Parak's expression turned cold. What nonsense are you talking about? Where's the giant clam you stole from my private waters? Chun Zhao asked. The old man was extremely valuable. They couldn't kill him casually like normal giant clams and dig out his flesh. It could be said that the old man, alive, was the most valuable. Just then, all the crew members on the fishing boat came out with weapons. Chun Zhao grinned. This was exactly what he needed. In Moon Coast, The butler system was recording everything with a high-magnification remote camera. It was also high-definition and uncensored. Chun Zhao snatched a spear from a crew member who'd charged over and swept the end of the spear over. He smacked the crew member onto the deck and threw the spear out. He nailed another crew member's arm to the cabin wall. Then Chun Zhao started going all out. However, because they were all normal people, Chun Zhao didn't kill them. Soon, Chun Zhao had defeated everyone. Apart from the one nailed to the wall by the spear, the rest of the crew members lay on the ground, moaning in pain. Chun Zhao stared at Parok fiercely. You're suspected of theft, trespassing into private waters, assault, and attempted murder. According to the Fortress Act, I have the absolute right and reason to kill all of you. Your families will have to compensate you with a large sum of money. I'll make your entire family sleep on the streets. Chun Zhao stared coldly at Parok. See, sir, we admit that we secretly caught fish from your private waters, but you can't slander us. No, I can't. My high-powered camera on the shore has already recorded all your crimes. You can't do that. Where's the giant clam that was stolen from my territory? Chun Zhao asked again. We were hired. The person in charge of the Marine Biology Research Institute hired us. The things are with them. Marine Biology Institute. Chun Zhao's face darkened. Was he inviting a wolf into the house? Chun Zhao took out his phone and called Alex. Hey, Alex, you have a job. Chun Zhao didn't explain further. Instead, he called David. Hey, David, there's a thief in my house. I need your help. Then, Chun Zhao called Isaac. Isaac, do you know that Nanston Kira hired a fishing boat to steal from my private waters? What? You mean Professor Nanston? Yes, that's right. My precious pet was stolen by him. I don't know. After I contacted you that time, I resigned the next day. You know this. Okay, I know. This has nothing to do with you. Chun Zhao didn't plan on blaming it on Isaac. Chun Zhao brought a large group of police officers and a legal team led by Alex and broke into the Marine Biology Research Institute. This time, Chun Zhao didn't plan on letting it go. When Nanston Kira heard that a large group of police had arrived, he came out with a confused expression. But when he saw Chun Zhao, his expression changed. Mr. Chun, what do you mean? What do I mean? Professor Nanston, I originally respected your professionalism, but I didn't think that my trust in you would be exchanged for your evil intentions. You disappoint me. I don't understand. You don't understand? Chun Zhao sneered. Are you familiar with Lucent Ocean Fishing Company? Nanston Kira's expression changed drastically again. Mr. Chun, I think there's some misunderstanding between us. Can we talk in private? I don't think that's necessary. Chun Zhao shook his head. Stop. You can't go in. This is private. Seeing that the police were about to enter the research institute, Nanston immediately stopped them. But how could he stop the police? Nanston could only look at Chun Zhao. Mr. Chun, you don't understand the value of that giant clam. It's a huge treasure trove. You can extract the perfect factor from it. As long as you give me some time to study it, I'll be able to produce results. Then, we can share the results perfectly. It's an immeasurable amount of wealth. I won't work with thieves, Chun Zhao said with a snort. With that, Chun Zhao shook off Nanston Kira. Perhaps Nanston's passion for research had once made Chun Zhao admire him. But when he found out that Nanston had actually hired someone to steal from him, all his admiration turned into anger. Nanston Kira still wanted to talk to Chun Zhao, but Alex stopped him. Professor Nanston, my client will file a lawsuit against you. You're suspected of theft and attempted murder. Nonsense. When did I hire someone to murder? The crew of the fishing boat you hired has already admitted that they took your money and listened to your orders. They went to my client's private waters to steal and fish. The amount is huge, more than $100 million. In order to cover up the truth, they asked them to kill anyone who found out about their actions. Nanston Kira sat on the ground. He already understood that this was Chun Zhao's revenge. Mr. Nanston, you're now under arrest. At the same time, we'll also file a criminal lawsuit against you. Chun Zhao finally found the old man in a pool. Some of the old man's flesh had been cut off, but it didn't affect him overall. At the same time, it wouldn't threaten his life. Chun Zhao let out a long sigh of relief. Alex, I'll make sure he can't get out of prison for the rest of his life. Forever. Chapter 2442. All right, calm down. Alex rarely saw Chun Zhao in such an angry state. According to the professor's confession, his original intention was to catch your shark, but he didn't get the shark. Instead, he fished up the giant clam. I don't care if he did it on purpose or not, Chun Zhao said, annoyed. Anyway, it's theft. Chun Zhao wasn't just angry that Nancy had stolen his things. More importantly, it was because of his betrayal and betrayal of her trust. Betrayal is not allowed at any time, although the old master had been found. However, Chun Zhao was still furious. He went home with a face full of resentment. However, Chun Zhao was still worried. Chun Zhao called Andrews, although it was 3:50 in the morning. However, Andrews picked up the phone on the second ring. Hello, Mr. Chun. How may I help you? Andrews did not sound tired or annoyed at all. This was the kind of work he did, even though it was after work. But he still had to serve Chun Zhao like a god. My Mingwe villa was robbed. The things I raised in the sea were secretly taken away by a fishing boat. Mr. Chun, I will protest with the Los Angeles City Hall and pressure them. No, the suspect has been caught, and the item has been recovered. As for the suspect's punishment, you don't have to worry about it. I want to ask, do you know of any way to monitor my private waters completely? The kind that can sound an alarm when any ship enters or leaves. Yes, Andrews immediately replied. About 10 sonar instruments will be installed along the Bright Moon coastline and the surrounding waters. This kind of sonar instrument will sink directly to the bottom of the sea after it is activated. It is mainly used in private marine fisheries and can also monitor the situation of the fish in the sea. Will this instrument cause pollution to the ecology of my sea? I heard that sonar can kill shoals of fish. Is that true? Also, Mr. Chun, I need to tell you something. Sonar mainly emits ultrasonic waves. Ultrasonic waves will not cause harm or threat to most fish and marine animals. What you said will kill the fish is the infrasound waves, and it is not ordinary infrasound waves. Ordinary infrasound waves will not cause too much of a problem. Only the infrasound waves created by the marine industry can kill the fish. All right, my mind is in a mess. How about this? Come to my house tomorrow. Okay, Mr. Chun. The next day, Chun Zhao sent the kids to school first. On the way home, he received a call from Andrews. Mr. Chun, I'm already at your door. Sorry, I just dropped my child off at school. I'm on my way home now. My assistant is at home. I'll ask her to pick you up now. After hanging up, he called Portia and asked her to open the door for Andrews. When Chun Zhao got home, he saw another stranger besides Andrews. Mr. Chun, nice to meet you. This is the expert I brought, Othar. He can help you answer your questions. Hello. Chun Zhao shook hands with Othar. Portia, didn't you prepare tea for my guest? Boss, I've been changing little Larissa's diaper and preparing breakfast for little Jerlin, Sindora, and Mara after I got here. Portia complained. She was indeed a bit angry because Chun Zhao had suddenly moved to Mingwe Villa last night. He did not tell her at all, so she went straight to Mirror Lake Manor in the morning. In the end, she saw that James and his crew were filming in Mirror Lake Manor. After asking, she found out that Chun Zhao had actually come here. Then she ran over anxiously. When she arrived, it was already past 9 o'clock. Mr. Chun, I already know what happened in your private sea, Andrews said. If you need my help, please let me know. Those people are no longer a problem, Chun Zhao said. I just need to be careful in case the same thing happens again in the future. At this time, Othar said, Mr. Chun, if that's the case, I can recommend 2 sonar instruments. I can assure you with my professionalism that either of these 2 products can solve the problem that's troubling you. I have sharks and dolphins in my private sea. They're all my friends. Can you guarantee that the sonar device won't harm them? Especially dolphins. I remember that dolphins can also emit ultrasonic waves. Will the sonar device mislead them? Mr. Chun, don't worry. Mr. Chun, don't worry about this. The sound waves emitted by dolphins are divided into 2 types. One is the ultrasonic wave used to detect the topography of the seabed and the school of fish, which is 200,000 to 300,000 hertz. The other is the low-frequency sound waves used to communicate with each other. These low-frequency sound waves are similar to human speech, and the ultrasonic waves emitted by sonar instruments far exceed these two types, even exceeding the upper limit of the ultrasonic waves that dolphins can hear, so it will not affect them. This kind of ultrasonic wave is similar to the use of mobile phones by humans. Mobile phones also have radiation, but the harm to humans is almost negligible. What's the difference between the two devices you recommended? Chun Zhao asked. Which one is good and which one isn't? The functions and effects of the two sonar devices are similar, Othar said. They're just different in convenience and price. Othar took out a few more explanations and continued. I'll be direct. These two products are sponsors of my lab, so of course my first recommendation is their product. But don't worry about the performance and quality. Their equipment is top-notch in the industry. You want me to buy one of them? Chun Zhao asked. Or do you want me to mix the two? Chun Zhao didn't really care if Othar got a commission or commission. For example, Andrews would get a commission every time he did something for Chun Zhao. Chun Zhao could accept all of this. Othar also trusted Chun Zhao. On the other hand, there were those who said that they didn't want any benefits, but were actually thieves and prostitutes. Like Nanston Kira, he seemed honest and loyal, as if he really wanted to dedicate his life to scientific research. But in the end, he came straight to Othar's house to steal. Chapter 2443. One of the two sonar brands is a super large device. It's more complicated to install and adjust, but you only need two of them to cover the entire area of your private sea, Othar said. Othar said, the other type is a small device. You can buy it directly, turn it on, and throw it into the sea. It will work normally, but the coverage is limited. I've looked at the area of Mr. Chen's private sea, and he needs about 15 of them. In terms of investment, the second type of device needs more money. What's the price difference? Chun Zhao asked. The first one costs $15 million, so two will be $30 million, Othar said. Othar said, the second one costs $3 million. If you calculate it by 15 units, it will be $45 million. Of course, with my relationship with the equipment manufacturers of these two brands, I can probably save you about 10%. Is the device that expensive? Can the fishery afford to store this thing? Indeed, other than a few fisheries, most small and medium-sized fisheries can't afford it. Their fisheries aren't even as valuable as the devices. Othar smiled bitterly. Even if large fishing boats have it, most of them only put it on the periphery of the fishery. Very few fisheries use it directly, but it's very effective against illegal fishing boats. Even if they come in a submarine, they could be discovered by the device. The price difference isn't a problem. I just want to know which one is better. In terms of coverage, the first type of 2 instruments and the second type of 15 instruments have the same coverage. There is no difference. However, some fishing boats are very bold. If they know that there is such equipment in this area, it is very likely that they will send divers into the water to destroy the equipment. So, Mr. Chun, which one do you think is more difficult to destroy, 2 instruments or 15 instruments? In other words, it's better to buy 15 small devices, right? When the price difference is no longer a problem, 15 small instruments are, of course, better than 2 big instruments. After all, it's quite troublesome to install and debug a big instrument. Moreover, once one of them malfunctions, half of the sea will be left unattended. Relatively speaking, 15 small instruments are, of course, safer. Okay, I'll order 20. I'll also put them on the periphery of my private sea area, Chun Zhao said. Andrews, I'll leave the rest to you. No problem, Mr. Chun, Andrews answered quickly. Othar was also very happy. After all, he could get a lot of commission from the purchase of the equipment. Mr. Chun, this is my name card. If you have any questions about the ocean in the future, you can call me. Othar felt that it was necessary to maintain a friendly relationship with Chun Zhao. The last marine biologist I knew just stole something valuable from my house, Chun Zhao said jokingly. That's right, Chun Zhao said. I know Nancy Kira. Othar said, our research topics are different. Of course, This does not hinder his reputation in our industry. But please believe me, I may not be as good as him in terms of research topics, but my professionalism is definitely above his. Nancy Chilla was curled up on her bed at the moment. He knew he was in big trouble this time. He was charged with multiple offenses. If all these crimes were carried out, then he would have to stay in prison until the end of time. He thought an idea. That was to use his reputation in the field of oceanography to find some peers to endorse him. He could have them speak up for him in the media. He might not be able to wash away all the crimes, but he could at least reduce many of them. However, the few peers that his lawyer had contacted all rejected his request. Even his lawyer dealt with him in a perfunctory manner. Nancy Chilla knew that this was most likely Chun Zhao's doing. He'd originally thought that Chun Zhao was just rich, but Chun Zhao was Asian. Asians had always been honest in North America. He felt that what he'd done was so secretive. Chun Zhao couldn't possibly know. Even if he did, he couldn't do anything if he didn't have evidence. He didn't think that he would be exposed before he could even be happy for 2 days. On the second and third day, more and more bad news came from the lawyer. He heard that Chun Zhao had specially found an evaluation agency to evaluate and appraise the giant clam in order to deal a heavy blow to him. Nancy Chilla was an expert in marine biology, so he knew the value of the giant clam better than anyone. It was not something that could be measured with money. He knew it even better than the owner, Chun Zhao. The giant clam was a priceless treasure. Normal giant clams had a lifespan of around 100 years. Occasionally, giant clams with a lifespan of 200, 300, or even longer would be discovered. In 2007, Faye LB had discovered the largest and oldest giant clam to date. According to the test, the giant clam was 500 years old. Its weight reached 1,758 kilograms, and at the same time, it produced 27 pearls. The inner wall of the carapace showed a jade-like phenomenon, which was similar to jade. That was why giant clams were also called living gems. Almost every country forbade harvesting giant clams. Nancy Chilla had also studied marine crustaceans. The giant clam's shell becoming jade-like was an exception, and it was almost impossible for a living giant clam to become jade-like. But Nancy Chilla knew that if the giant clam didn't die after its lifespan, it would produce some special substance that would make the giant clam's shell become jade-like. Of course, that special substance could even obviously improve a person's body functions. Nancy Chilla called this special substance the perfect factor. This was also the reason why he'd wanted to steal Chun Zhao's shark at first, but after discovering the giant clam, he'd suddenly changed his mind. Because the giant clam was really too rare. It was even at least half the size of the world record for the largest giant clam. Nancy Chilla felt that if he could extract the giant clam's perfect factor and then artificially synthesize it, not only would he obtain great wealth, he could even overturn the entire world. But his dream had ended before it even started. Chun Zhao had destroyed his dream, his hope, his everything. That damned Asian. He didn't understand how great his research was at all. Chapter 2444. Knock, knock. Just then, the police outside the cell knocked on the iron bars with their batons. Someone outside wants to see you, the police said coldly. Nanston Kira tidied his clothes. Although he was wearing a prison uniform, he still paid attention to his appearance. Nanston Kira came to a single room. It was different from the visiting room where he'd met the lawyer last time. Nanston Kira keenly sensed that it wasn't his lawyer who'd asked to see him. Just then, a young man walked in from the other side. A young man with a smile as warm as the sun. Nanston Kira looked the young man up and down. He was cultured, young and handsome, dressed in style, and treated people humbly. That was what Nancy Kira felt from him. Hello, Professor Nanston. Please sit. Hello, who are you? Do we know each other? Nanston Kira had a good impression of the man. However, he was still instinctively wary. After all, he knew that he'd angered Chun Zhao. Who knew what Chun Zhao would do to him? Perhaps the young man in front of him was sent by Chun Zhao to tease him. It was even possible that they had arranged an even bigger trap for him. My name is Vincent. I want to hire you to work for my boss. Sorry, you should be able to tell that I can't work for anyone right now. That's not a problem, Vincent said with a smile. You just have to answer, accept, or reject. Nothing else matters. I'm curious, Vincent said, smiling. How can I serve your boss now? If you accept, I'll be responsible for taking you out of the prison. If you reject, pretend I never came today. Since you can find me here, you should know who I offended. Do you still have the confidence to let me leave the prison? Of course I have my ways. Vincent took out a document with a smile and pushed it in front of Nanston Kira. If you agree, sign your name on this contract. Of course, you can also put your fingerprint on it. Nanston Kira picked up the contract and looked at it carefully. The style of the contract was rather strange. Many of the words were rather old too. Nanston Kira rubbed the contract with his fingers. It wasn't the regular rice paper. Are you sure this contract has legal effect? The contract required him to work for Vincent's boss for 30 years as an employee, research some special projects for Vincent's boss, and are not allowed to refuse. This was very irregular. Nanston Kira could not help but wonder if this contract was meaningful. Of course, the boss has his ways to restrict you. Professor Nanston, you should understand that most of the time, the law can't restrict everything. For example, your enemy has money and power, so he can decide whether you live or die. Although these words were very hurtful, Nancy Kira understood that Vincent's words were actually very tactful. In front of the truly rich, his resistance was indeed futile. Then how do I know that he didn't hire you to tease me? I can't prove it. Vincent spread out his hands and said, But for you, there's no other choice now. Either you choose to spend the rest of your life in a dark prison, or you accept my kindness. Anyway, your situation can't get any worse, can it? I want to know, what does your boss want me to do? The contract did not state your boss's intentions. Of course, it's to use your professional knowledge to study marine biology. There are many experts in marine biology. I'm not the best. No, in some fields, you're the best. At least that's what Homesius once said about you. Nancy Kira suddenly widened her eyes and looked at Vincent in shock. Homesius? Does he also work for your boss? Once, Vincent said indifferently. Regardless of our falling out, he and his wife destroyed my boss's research and ran away with the research data. Vincent added, but during our cooperation, Homesius said more than once that if it were you, you would have already achieved results. No matter how beautiful your words are, you can't hide the fact that I'm actually Homesius's substitute. No, not substitute, it's replace. Vincent corrected Nancy Kira's cognitive bias. Even before we fell out, he didn't research results that satisfied my boss. So even if Homesius didn't fall out with us, we had to terminate our cooperation. It doesn't say how I'll be treated. How much is your original income? My boss can give you 10 times the treatment. I don't just want money. Then what else do you want? Take revenge on that Chinese for me. Sorry, the boss won't go to war with him for you. If you think you have the ability, you can go yourself. Vincent refused directly. Your boss is only SOSO. He's actually afraid of that Chinese. You're not worth it for my boss to go to war with that Chinese. At least for now, you're far from worth it. What if I can prove my worth? Then we'll talk about it when you prove your worth. I can create unimaginable wealth for your boss, Nancy Kira said. When money reaches a certain level, there's no essential difference between $1 billion and $10 billion. My boss isn't so superficial to pursue wealth. Rich people are all so hypocritical. Back then, Nancy Kira had seen rich people for research funding a lot of rich people. And rich people always said that when money reached a certain level, it was only a difference in numbers. In fact, these rich people were still pursuing even greater wealth with no regard for their own safety. Then what's your answer? Accept or refuse? I accept, Nancy Kira said. You also said that this is my last chance. Nancy Kira signed her name on the contract. Wise choice. Vincent smiled brightly. You won't regret your decision. Then when can I leave here? Nancy Kira asked. Tonight, Vincent said. Tonight? Are you guys that efficient? Can you get the police to release me tonight? Maybe not get the police to release you. Bail? My bail is very high. You don't need to worry about that. You just need to be prepared. I'll come pick you up tonight. Chapter 2445. Nanston Kira waited expectantly. He hoped that the police would come to his cell and tell him, "You can come out now." But 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, he still couldn't wait for the news of his release. Damn it. Damn bastard. I knew it. I knew it was that damn Chinese who was playing with me. Nanston Kira suddenly became irritable. It was already 23 in the evening. Nanston Kira had already given up. By this time, the court had already closed. Boomed out a loud sound came from behind Nanston Kira without warning. Nanston Kira was so scared that he curled up into a ball. Looking back, he found a big hole in the wall behind him. Vincent stood in the hole and looked at Nancy Kira in the cell from inside. "Professor Nanston, we should go." What's wrong with me? You want me to break out of prison? Your bail is $13 million US. It's impossible for my boss to pay so much for you, and the money is bound to be confiscated. So you should hurry up now. The entire detention center was already ringing with alarms. Nanston Kira took a deep breath and finally took that step. "Where's your helper?" "Just me," Vincent said with a smile. "Are you crazy? You dare to break out of prison by yourself?" "I know what I'm doing," Vincent said disapprovingly. "Where does this lead?" "The sewers." In various movies and TV dramas, the sewers were always the golden passageway for prison breaks. However, Nanston Kira felt that Vincent was too reckless. He wasn't against illegal prison breaks. The key was whether he could be more meticulous. Blow up the wall of the cell he was in and escape through the sewers. Wasn't that too careless? Sure enough, after they entered the sewers, they heard footsteps behind them. The police in the detention center had obviously discovered that he had broken out of prison. This made Nanston Kira nervous. After all, no one liked to be caught right after breaking out of prison. His enemies would definitely find joy in his pain. "What should we do?" "Hurry up and think of a way. The police are coming from behind." Nancy pulled Vincent's arm nervously. He hoped that Vincent was actually joking with him. He hoped that Vincent actually had a very thorough plan. He actually had a lot of helpers. But to his disappointment, Vincent shook his head. "It doesn't matter. I can kill as many people as they come. This joke isn't funny." Vincent didn't care about Nancy Kira's thoughts. He just led the way. But the sounds of pursuit were getting closer and closer. Nancy also became more and more nervous. Nancy Kira looked back, and this glance almost made his soul leave his body. Searchlights were coming from the corner behind them. At this moment, Vincent suddenly stopped. Just then, Nancy Kira felt something wriggling in Vincent's arm. Nancy loosened his grip and saw a 2-meter-long sea snake crawling out of Vincent's sleeve. Frightened, Nancy watched the sea snake crawl towards the back. "Are you a magician?" Vincent glanced at Nancy Kira. "This isn't magic." Just then a scream came from behind. "Sea snake? It's a sea snake. Damn it, kill it." Bang, bang. Because it was on the other side of the corner, Nancy Kira didn't know what was going on behind him. Could it be that a sea serpent was enough to make the pursuing police panic? Wasn't this too strange? He even used a gun. Was that necessary? "Let's go faster," Vincent suddenly said. He had a feeling that if he didn't go faster, big trouble would come. He knew who had sent Nancy Chilla to prison. It was that terrifying human. If the police told him that Nancy Kira had escaped from prison, then he definitely wouldn't sit back and do nothing. Vincent wasn't confident that he could escape from Chun Zhao again. Even his master said it. He didn't want to be enemies with that human. Just then, a rusty iron fence appeared in front of them. However, although the iron fence was rusty, it was still extremely strong. "Oh no, what do we do now? Do you want to go another way?" Nancy asked anxiously. Vincent stepped forward. He reached out with both hands and forcefully broke them. The 2 steel bars of the iron fence were directly broken. Nancy's mouth was wide open, her face full of astonishment. How? How did you do it? "Do you want to stay here and investigate? Or do you want to leave this dirty sewer as soon as possible?" "Fine." After Nancy Kira stepped out of the fence, Vincent went up and bent the 2 steel bars back. Nancy was speechless. Could a human bend such a thick steel bar? This probably required thousands of kilograms of strength, right? Or was it because the iron fence had already rusted? Could he bend the steel bar with his bare hands because the strength had decreased? However, Nancy didn't have time to think so much. They had already reached the end of the sewer. The exit of the sewer was a river. Vincent had already prepared a small boat here. Just like that, Nancy Kira successfully escaped from prison and boarded the small boat. The small boat flowed downstream and entered the sea through the estuary. Nancy didn't expect their prison break to be so easy. Where are we going now? We'll go wherever this boat takes us. It was understandable that they were in the river before, but at this time, they had already entered the sea. The direction of the waves was uncertain. Who knew where they would go? But what made him feel strange was that he and Vincent clearly didn't control the boat, but the boat still kept drifting towards the open sea. Logically speaking, a small wooden boat like there should be constantly wandering back and forth near the sea without any power or anyone operating it. However, the boat was always heading in one direction. It felt like something was carrying them towards the open sea. Suddenly, a wave appeared on the surface of the sea. The boat no longer moved forward, but instead retreated a distance. At this time, a black iron well rose from the original position of the boat. A submarine? Nancy Kira cried out in surprise. Come on, let's go in. You prepared this? It's too dangerous on the surface of the sea. Hiding below makes me feel a little safer. 9 Heavens, Divine Emperor. Chapter 2446. I've already escaped here. The police can't chase me here. Maybe they're still wondering if I've already come ashore when I was in the river. It's not the police. It's danger from the sea. Even though this was Vincent's home ground, it was difficult for him to find confidence here. He didn't even want to recall that unbearable experience. It was definitely not a pleasant memory. On the other hand, Nancy Kira was blindly confident. In his opinion, Vincent's boss could even give him a submarine as an escape tool. One could imagine how powerful he was. Even the Coast Guard wouldn't be able to catch them. According to Nancy Kira's observation, this submarine should be a modified military submarine. This submarine wasn't one that had been retired in the 60s or 70s. It was a mainstream military submarine that was still in service. This was no longer a problem that could be solved with money. Without enough political influence, it was almost impossible to do this. Is the submarine's weapon system still there? Nancy Kira asked curiously. Yes. Why do you ask? Do me a favor and launch a torpedo at that Chinese man's house. Are you crazy? Vincent rolled his eyes with all his might. He couldn't wait to hide from Chun Zhao. How could he walk right into a trap? Moreover, he could roughly feel it. Chun Zhao wasn't very interested in him and his master. Ever since that escape on the cruise ship, he was still hiding in Los Angeles, but he didn't feel like he was being chased. It was probably because there was no essential conflict of interest between them. They were on opposite sides because they met the wrong person at the wrong place. The main reason for their conflict was still the incident itself. After that incident, the hostility between them faded. But this didn't mean they were friends. If he threw a torpedo at someone else's house, that would basically turn them from friends to irreconcilable enemies. The next time they met, it would be a fight to the death. Whether it was Vincent or his master, neither of them wanted to fight to the death with a powerful enemy for the sake of a Nancy Kira. A Nancy Kira was not worth it for them to pay such a price. Chun Zhao received a call from David. Nancy Kira had escaped from prison. David suspected that it was a spiritualist. David even suspected that Chun Zhao had done it. He felt that Chun Zhao might want to lynch Nancy. Of course, Chun Zhao repeatedly promised that it wasn't him. David still accepted Chun Zhao's explanation. Of course, it was mainly from the traces left at the scene. It was far from Chun Zhao's personal style. Chun Zhao could also temporarily disguise his style, but Chun Zhao probably didn't need to. Moreover, Chun Zhao had asked the police to solve the problem. Then there was no need to take Nancy Kira out of custody again. Chun Zhao was depressed that Nancy Kira had run away. He had been absent-minded the entire day. He regretted it a little. If he had known earlier, he would have taken care of this matter himself. At that time, he would have just twisted off Nancy Kira's head and kicked it like a ball. Of course, there was nothing in this world that was completely satisfactory. Just as he was feeling depressed, he received a call from Right. Hey, darling, did you miss me? Chun, have you contacted Tiger recently? Tiger? What happened to him? Chun Zhao frowned. He hadn't contacted Tiger recently. He hadn't even paid attention to Tiger. You're really incompetent as a teacher. I've been busy recently. That can't cover up your negligence. Fine, I was wrong. Tiger's recent actions have already brought a lot of negative news to our school. It's even a scandal. That's serious? I heard that you introduced him to his agent. You can go ask him yourself. Fine, I'll contact you later. After hanging up, Chun Zhao called Dell. Dell, Chun, you've been back in L.A. for so long, and you haven't come to hang out with me. You're too much. Can't you come if I don't go? Fine. Are you asking me out now? I want to ask about Tiger. You don't know? Know what? He already fired his agent from CAA. When did that happen? Chun Zhao asked, surprised. I don't know at all. Chun Zhao was the one who'd introduced Tiger to CAA. Dell had been the middleman. After that, Tiger's performance became better and better. After that, Chun Zhao stopped paying attention to Tiger. He felt that Tiger didn't need too much attention anymore. Just 2 months ago. So you don't know how he's doing? No, I know, Dell said. After all, he's a former client of CAA. We still pay attention to him. How's he been recently? Was he the one who lost the match in the arena? Or something? He's as good as always in the arena. Hearing that, Chun Zhao was even more surprised. If he was as good as always, why would Wright say that Tiger had embarrassed the school? What about other things? His current management company is SC. What's the problem? SC isn't good at business operations. They're good at controlling their clients. How? Drugs, women. These are the most common methods. He's been in contact with drugs? Chun Zhao was instantly infuriated. So far, he hasn't failed a urine test during his post-match medical examination. But recently, the media has been reporting on the people he's been in contact with. They're all gang members. There have even been news of prostitutes in his mansion. In Chun Zhao's memory, Tiger seemed to have a girlfriend. They'd only had a meal together at the beginning of last year. Chun Zhao knew that in the sports world, people would often lose themselves because they became famous overnight. The most famous example in the boxing world was Tyson. He'd once dominated the heavyweight boxing world. After he became rich, he started spending and indulging without restraint. The result was, of course, being beaten to a pulp in the arena by someone who had once defeated him. He left the boxing world and became even more extravagant. In the end, he went bankrupt. Chun Zhao didn't want Tiger to be like that. But some things wouldn't happen just because Chun Zhao didn't want them to. Tiger was his student, but Chun Zhao was an adult himself. Plus, in Europe and America, everyone had their own private lives. Chun Zhao could give him a call, but he couldn't interfere with Tiger's personal choices. Their previous contract had also been terminated. At the time, Chun Zhao felt that he was rich enough. He didn't need to suck blood from Tiger anymore. Ford's contract was the same. So, Chun Zhao lost his last method to restrict Tiger. Chapter 2447. After thinking for a long time, Chun still decided to talk to Tiger. If this was in China, even neighbors would talk to you. But this wasn't China. Hey, Tiger, do you have time? How about we talk? Teacher? Tiger clearly didn't expect Chun to call him. Subconsciously, he was still afraid of Chun. Teacher, I'm competing overseas. I don't have time. Fine. Chun's eye twitched. Tiger's intention to evade and lie was too obvious. Tiger, do you remember what I said? Teacher, what did you say? I could take back what I can give. Thank you for the reminder, teacher. Then Tiger hung up. Chun could feel Tiger's resentment. Chun didn't plan to talk about life principles with Tiger. He picked up his phone and searched for news about Tiger. Although the news might not be true, most of the time, it could explain part of the problem. In Tiger's mansion, a bespectacled, middle-aged black man in a suit walked over. Tiger, who's calling? I saw your face suddenly change after you answered the phone. Bach. Tiger raised his head and glanced at his manager. My former teacher. Oh, he asked you for money? Bach knew the world too well. After a person became rich, there would often be some inexplicable people who would stick to him and ask for benefits. No, he doesn't want money, but he wants to take everything from me. Tiger's face was clouded. Oh, who is he? He's the person who made me, Tiger said. I started my career under his guidance. He's really good. Tiger, you're the boxing champion, the first Grand Slam winner in the history of boxing. You're the strongest person in the world. No, you don't know him. He once beat a dozen people to death with his bare hands. Fear appeared on Tiger's face. Even now, he couldn't forget what had happened on the internet. More than 30 people had surrounded the two of them, but Chun had killed more than a dozen people and heavily injured them. To him, it was like a nightmare. Hearing Tiger's words, Bach couldn't help but frown. He scrutinized Tiger. Could Tiger do it? With the strength he had displayed in the arena, it would probably be very difficult for him to do so. The corners of Bahi's mouth curved upwards. Tiger, I have something good for you. Something good? What? Tiger turned and looked at Bach. He knew that Bach's hands were not clean. When his agent found out that he was in contact with Bach, he had warned him. However, compared to his former agent's style, Tiger clearly preferred Bach. It was not only because of Bach's request for a lower share, but also because of Bach's ability and means. For example, in a previous match, his opponent was a boxer who was equally strong. At the time, Tiger had studied the opponent's match recordings several times. Even he wasn't confident that he could beat him. But no one knew what Bahi had done. His opponent was glaring at him with rage and hatred. However, he didn't retaliate despite being beaten. Although Bahi did not say it clearly to him, he could feel that Bahi must have used some means outside of the arena. Of course, winning that match so easily made Tiger forget about Bach's tricks. But that didn't mean Tiger trusted Bach completely, especially when Bach offered something good. Tiger became wary. Bach chuckled and took out a small bottle of medicine. What's this? A stimulant? No, it's not a low-end medicine like stimulants. Bach shook his head. It's called the devil's medicine. It can greatly increase your strength. Not just temporarily, but permanently. Bach, I don't want to be banned. Ha! I can't detect it with my current methods. Can't detect it. Tiger raised an eyebrow and looked at Bach suspiciously. Bach nodded and said with certainty, absolutely not. I'm your agent. How can I let you be banned? How much? Tiger was tempted. It's free, Bach said. Free? How is that possible? Tiger didn't believe that Bach would give him something like this without reservation. As long as you do me a small favor, I'll give it to you, Bach said with a smile. What favor? Help me fight a match, Bach said. You're my agent. Can't you arrange it? It's not a regular match. Underground boxing? Tiger asked in shock. Yes, it's an underground boxing match. Tiger was silent for a moment. He looked up at Bach. Are you sure this thing has no side effects? Of course. I won't joke around with the greatest client I've ever worked with in my career. Tiger thought about it. It was just as Bach said. If he was banned, his loss would be the greatest, but Bach's loss wouldn't be small either. When is the match? Tonight. Why the rush? Don't you want to try the effect of this medicine? It'll take effect today. The effect of this devil's medicine is more perfect than you think. Tiger took the devil's medicine and hesitated. But in the end, his desire won over his rationality. Inject or take it? Take it. Can I take it directly? Of course. Tiger twisted the cap and sniffed. There was no smell. After hesitating for a few more seconds, he drank the entire medicine. After the medicine entered his stomach, Tiger felt a burning sensation in his abdomen. The burning sensation was spreading to his limbs and bones. Drink, Tiger let out a low growl. Surprise flashed in Bach's eyes. He'd seen others use the devil's medicine before. The pain produced during use could almost be described as unbearable. But Tiger didn't seem to be in too much pain. He seemed to be able to endure it. Tiger's breathing became heavy. He even spat out white gas. His muscles swelled like balloons. The veins under his skin bulged. Tiger gritted his teeth and clenched his fists. It wasn't a good feeling. His bones cracked. Tiger roared and threw a punch at the wall behind him. Tiger's fist embedded into the concrete wall. When he retracted his fist, there was a bowl-sized hole in the wall. Cracks spread around the hole. Chapter 2448. Tiger did not want to believe his eyes. He had punched a hole in the wall. The wall was made of concrete and steel. not to mention fists. Even a hammer might not be able to penetrate it. But now he could punch a hole in it. Was this the effect of the devil's potion? It was unbelievable. Tiger felt like he could beat anyone now. Bach was surprised too. He did not expect Tiger to be so compatible with the devil's potion. He also knew the effects of the devil's potion. At the moment, it wasn't an exaggeration to say that he could break an adult bear's neck if he fought it. Tiger looked at his fists. He had never felt so confident before. Even against Chun Zhao, he had the courage to say no. What time is the match tonight? What? You can't wait anymore? Bach was satisfied with Tiger's excitement. I feel like I can kill a lion. One intoxicating power. Night fell. Tiger and Bach set off together, heading to the underground boxing arena. But as soon as the car drove out of the gate, a figure jumped out and blocked their way. Tiger and Bach were both shocked. They took a closer look. Wasn't the person blocking the car Tiger's previous opponent? Tiger remembered that the man was called Hinga. Syndicate was also black. He was taller than Tiger, but he was slightly more slender than Tiger. Bach got out of the car. Hinga, do you want to die? Bach, you said that if I lose to Tiger, you'll give me money, Hinga said directly. My daughter needs surgery, but you haven't received the money yet. Bach sneered at Hinga. I don't remember saying that. You fucking bastard, you lied to me? Furious, Hinga accused Bach. Fuck off, or I'll call the police. Bach looked at Hinga in disdain. I'm going to tell the media. Not only did you make me fight in an underground boxing match, but you also threatened me with my daughter's life. A cold glint flashed across Bach's eyes. It was not his first time making his client fix a match. In the past, people had tried to threaten him with this. But now he was still standing here, safe and sound. As for the people who threatened him, they had all disappeared. No one has ever dared to threaten me. Do you know where the people who wanted to use these things to threaten me ended up? Bach's glasses flashed with a cold light. Syndicate was actually afraid as well. He had long heard of Bach's reputation in the circle. Notoriety is not enough to describe his badness. Just then, Tiger got off too. When Hinga saw Tiger, his eyes flashed with hatred. Tiger smiled. Bach, let me handle it. You? Bach was disappointed. How is Tiger going to deal with him? Tiger walked up to Hinga. I don't care what happened between you and Bach, but I'm willing to give you a chance. What opportunity? Let's have a fight. If you win, I'll ask Bach to give you the money. When? Where? Sin wasn't afraid of Tiger at all. He felt that Tiger was just a fake. Otherwise, his agent would not have looked for him that day and asked him to cooperate with the fake fight. Right here, Tiger said coolly. Tiger crooked his finger. If you can beat me, you can get the money. That's what you said. Yes, that's what I said. Tiger twisted his neck. Tiger, you still have a fight later. I know, Tiger said confidently. That's why I need to warm up. Hearing Tiger's words, Hinga was furious. I'm actually just a warm-up for him? He was looking down on him too much. Hinga had already gotten into position. Come on, let me see where your confidence comes from. Tiger quickly stood in front of Hinga. Let's start. Zinga threw out a left uppercut with a heavy swing. Got it. Hinga was very confident in his attack. Tiger was too arrogant. He actually did not block at all. Indeed, Hinga's prediction was right. His left hook landed heavily on Tiger's chin. But Tiger did not move at all. Instead, it was Hinga. He felt like his fist had hit an iron wall. Too weak. You're too weak like this. Tiger shook his head. Hinga's expression changed. He hurriedly retreated into a defensive position. The feeling Tiger gave him now was completely different from last time. Last time, in the ring of an official match, he had been prepared to lose. But Tiger's attack, defense, strength, speed, and technique had not made him feel pressure at all. In the 7th round of the half-real, half-fake match, he purposely showed an opening and was KO'd by Tiger with one punch. But now, Tiger gave him the feeling that he was an insurmountable mountain. Tiger attacked. It was a devastating punch. It hit Hinga's arms in front of him first. Crack. In an instant, the bones in Syndicate's arms and hands were like broken pieces of wood. But Tiger did not stop. The terrifying power landed directly on Hinga's face. Syndicate's entire body flew a few meters away and fell to the ground, completely unconscious. Bach, are you going to kill his mom? Tiger asked, unconcerned. Bach was about to say kill him. Suddenly, he saw a light behind a flower bed across the road. Don't mess around. There are paparazzi, Bach said in a low voice. Let's go. He's lucky. Tiger spat and got into the car. The next day, almost all the media was reporting about the private fight between Hinga and Tiger at night. Hinga was still lying in the hospital, but he still claimed that Tiger and his manager had asked him to fake the fight. But no one believed him, because a paparazzi had recorded the scene of the two of them fighting last night. Tiger was clearly much stronger than Hinga. They could not understand why Tiger would ask Hinga to fake the fight. So, even though Tiger had injured Hinga, more people were willing to support him and believe in him. On the other hand, Hinga had become the target of everyone's hatred. The media made him into a scoundrel and villain. Because he lost the fight, he blackmailed Tiger and used fake news as an excuse. Then, he was beaten to the ground by Tiger, which proved his point of view. Chun Zhao watched the news report. He picked up his phone and called West. West, help me investigate someone's identity. Oh, okay. President, who do you want to investigate? A man called Sinka, a heavyweight boxer. He's also the guy who made a lot of noise in the news today. Chapter 2449. Mr. Hinga, I'm representing Mr. Tiger. I'm sending you a lawyer's letter. Because you've spread inappropriate comments, my client has suffered great harm and financial loss. So Mr. Tiger has filed a lawsuit and asked for $3 million, Tiger's lawyer said arrogantly. Tiger's lawyer said arrogantly. In his eyes, Hinga was a loser, a joke. Hinga had overestimated himself and fought Tiger. In the end, both in the ring and in terms of influence, he'd been defeated by Tiger's absolute strength. Bang! Suddenly, the door to the ward was pushed open. Both Hinga and Tiger's lawyer froze when they saw an Asian man walk in. Chun Zhao glanced at Tiger's lawyer and then at Hinga. He's your friend? No. Who are you? Hinga didn't understand the situation. Judging from how Chun Zhao had pushed the door open, he seemed to be here for trouble too. Just like this morning, when a fan of Tiger had rushed into the ward to insult him. Chun Zhao didn't answer Hinga's question immediately. Instead, he looked at Tiger's lawyer. You can scram now. Who do you think you are? Yellow-skinned monkey. Slap. Chun Zhao slapped Tiger's lawyer, knocking out 2 of his front teeth. I'm going to sue you. I'm going to jail. Tiger's lawyer was still roaring fearlessly. Just then, another voice came from the door. Ysef, are you going to sue my boss? Ysef looked up. When he saw Alex, he couldn't help but shiver. She was the queen of the largest law firm in California and the lawyer with the highest winning rate in America in the past decade. Of course, she was also the most expensive lawyer. With a 95% chance of winning, it could be said that it was a nightmare for a lawyer to face Alex in court. Moreover, Alex had the most professional team of lawyers. What frightened Witherspoon the most was what Alex had just said. She didn't call Chun Zhao a client or client. She called a boss. The two were completely different. Is there a way to revoke his lawyer's license? Chun Zhao asked calmly. As you wish, boss. Alex didn't seem to mind either. Give me some private time with Mr. Hinga. Not long after, the ward was cleared. Of course, when they asked Witherf to leave, they still asked for the hospital's security. Syndicate vaguely realized why he was transferred to this hospital. He even arranged a luxurious ward for him and arranged for a professional doctor to treat him. It was very likely that it was arranged by this Asian. Chun Zhao pulled over a chair and sat before Syndicate's bed. Your daughter is also in this hospital, and she has already found a matching heart. She can undergo surgery in 3 days, and the surgery fee has already been paid. The best heart transplant specialist in California will be in charge of this surgery. I can't guarantee that the surgery will be a success, but as long as you can think of a reasonable request that can improve the surgery, you can tell me. Chun Zhao said, the best heart transplant specialist in California will be responsible for this surgery. Hearing that, Syndicate knew that there was no free lunch in the world. Chun Zhao hadn't discussed this with him beforehand, but he couldn't refuse the offer. He, Tiger, and Bach were in a heated argument. Their ultimate goal was to raise money for his daughter's heart transplant. What do you need from me? Take a look at this contract. It was an investment contract. It was the one that Chun Zhao had signed with Ford and Tiger. However, this contract was more complete than the previous one. After all, Chun Zhao's legal team had helped draft it. At the same time, the terms were even harsher. If Syndicate broke the contract, he would either have to become a miner in Africa or sleep on the streets for the rest of his life. "Where's the pen?" Syndicate asked. "Didn't you discuss the contract's content with me? I can't find a reason to refuse. My daughter's surgery cost $300,000, and then you have to pay for my treatment, rehabilitation, nutrition, and the cost of hiring a rehabilitation coach, fitness coach, and professional boxing coach. The total cost is even higher than my daughter's surgery. What's more, my attending doctor told me that my arm's bones were destroyed and my arm's nerves were severely injured. That is to say, for a long time in the future, or even for the rest of my life, I won't be able to return to the ring with my hands, let alone return to the boxing ring. In your contract, as long as I haven't fully recovered, you have to pay me $20,000 a month. That is to say, even if I don't do anything, I can live a very comfortable life every month. I don't understand why you would refuse this contract." Chun Zhao tossed a pen to Syndicate. Syndicate picked it up with his trembling right hand. However, he couldn't even hold the pen steadily. "You saw it too. Are you sure you want me to sign this contract now?" Chun Zhao nodded. "That's why I came." Syndicate took a deep breath. He suddenly hesitated. He still couldn't figure out Chun Zhao's identity. He couldn't understand Chun Zhao's intentions. What exactly did Chun Zhao want to do? In the end, Syndicate couldn't resist the temptation of the contract. "What do you want to do?" "Destroy what I once created with my own hands," Chun Zhao said calmly. "I don't know what you mean. A year ago, Tiger was in the same situation as you. His arm was injured. He almost lost everything, his dreams, his future, and his hope." Chun Zhao's tone was a bit emotional. "I gave him the same contract. I gave him a chance to stand on the stage of his dreams again, but he disappointed me. I once told him that I can take back what I can give him with my own hands." Xian Jia abruptly looked up at Chun Zhao. He vaguely remembered that when Tiger debuted last year, he would always say something like his teacher in every interview after he won a match. Every interview was the same. Now, he suddenly understood something. But he also felt that Chun Zhao was too cruel to destroy the disciple he'd trained with his own hands. Syndicate didn't understand Chun Zhao. Now, Chun Zhao wasn't just disappointed in Tiger. He also hated him. Chun Zhao found Tiger's ex-girlfriend. They'd broken up long ago. Tiger, on the other hand, had given his ex-girlfriend severe physical and psychological trauma. Some of the damage was even hard to talk about. Chun Zhao vaguely remembered that when he'd first met Tiger and his ex-girlfriend, he'd sincerely wished them well. Now that he thought about it, it was so funny. Divine King of the Nine Heavens. Chapter 2450. Mr. Tiger, with earth covered his face. He'd just received a lecture from Alex. She'd also told him how rich her boss was. At the same time, she'd told him the terrifying consequences of becoming his enemy. At the same time, she'd helped Chun Zhao pass on a message. That's what he said. Tiger's expression was cold. There was even a hint of fear. "Can I take back what I gave myself?" Bach glanced at Tiger. "Tiger, he's not as scary as you think. He's in the past now." "No, Bach, you don't understand. He's really scary. He's the devil." Tiger's tone became urgent. "Did you know that he and I were blocked in the parking lot? They asked me to fake a fight. Then, with a smile on his face, he punched the people who surrounded us to death and crippled them." Tiger's tone became urgent. Then he still looked at me with that smile and said in a gentle tone, "If you disappoint me one day, then I'll take back what I gave myself." Tiger looked up at Bach. "I once swore that I'd never disappoint him. I'd never face him with that smile." "You didn't do anything," Bach said. "Plus, he doesn't have evidence, right?" Tiger smiled bitterly at Bach. "Do you think he's the kind of person who needs evidence?" Bach's expression turned cold. "Since he doesn't want to reason with us, we don't need to reason with him either. Don't worry, leave this to me." "Bach, don't use extreme methods. You'll anger him." "Tiger, you don't understand me or my company." Bach patted Tiger's shoulder. You could be a big star without worry. No one could threaten my client. The more Bach said this, the more worried Tiger was. Chun Zhao had never thought that the big boy would become a real bad guy. Chun Zhao's impression of Tiger was still that of a shy, introverted boy who was always passionate about the ring and thirsted for victory. This change was too sudden. Chun Zhao was still in a daze. Wes had helped him investigate a lot of information about Tiger. Hiring. Prostitutes were a personal problem. Chun Zhao could ignore it. There was also the emotional entanglement between him and his ex-girlfriend, which could only be said to be a personal issue. Even if he beat up his ex-girlfriend, Chun Zhao would at most call the police instead of getting involved himself. However, he couldn't accept that Chun Zhao had gotten some information from his ex-girlfriend. That was no longer just a matter of touching the bottom line of morality. If it were in China, it would be enough to be executed several times. As the saying goes, men become bad when they have money. Tiger was the best example. To put it bluntly, he had become arrogant after becoming famous. Moreover, it was the kind that drifted too far. Chun Zhao felt that it was already too much for rich people to reveal their identities and throw a stack of cash at ordinary people. However, he had clearly underestimated Tiger. Tiger was completely different from Ford and Everly. Rufford's career had its ups and downs. But after meeting Chun Zhao, his career skyrocketed. Coupled with the environment he grew up in and the stability of his family, Rutherford's mentality had always been good. Moreover, he often communicated with Chun Zhao. Chun Zhao didn't have much to teach him in terms of technique. However, Chun Zhao could still guide him in terms of training and nutrition. Perhaps Rufford also got arrogant sometimes, but he could control himself. Everly was different. Her family background had always been extraordinary. She had received a lead education since she was young. Now, she was the most famous athlete in the sports world. It was just another way for her to succeed other than inheriting her family business. Thus, her mentality was the best. She also kept in touch with Chun Zhao. Tiger was different. In the past, he had felt inferior. Now, he was as arrogant as he was arrogant. After being repressed for a long time, once a person found an outlet, they would go crazy. It wasn't that poor kids couldn't become rich overnight. If only someone had been able to guide them back then, Tiger wouldn't have become like this. However proud Chun Zhao was of Tiger in the past, he hated him now. Right now, Chun Zhao's mentality was, I raised him, so I'll destroy him with my own hands. Moreover, Chun Zhao wanted to destroy him in all aspects. Don't talk to Chun Zhao. He was still a kid. Plus, he could still be saved. He just lacked guidance. A mistake was a mistake. He could make other mistakes and still have a chance to redeem himself. But some mistakes couldn't be undone. Tiger had committed 2 unforgivable crimes. One was drunk driving and killed a mother and daughter. Then, to avoid responsibility, he let someone else take the blame. The husband of the mother and daughter's family hanged himself half a month later. At least, the police concluded that it was suicide. But Chun Zhao didn't think so. Tiger had been in frequent contact with gangs for a while. Therefore, the media often saw this kind of news, and the territory of the gang he was associated with happened to be near the neighborhood where the man who hanged himself lived. The second crime was that he had violated a woman. That night, the woman and her family were all buried in a fire. The first crime was from Wes' investigation, and the second was from a few words from Tiger's ex-girlfriend. Chun Zhao had also been to the scene of the fire. At the same time, he'd gotten a report from the fire station. The report showed that someone had indeed set the fire on purpose, but there were no clues about the suspect. Chun Zhao wasn't a judge, so he never needed evidence. Most of the time, judges didn't pursue justice, but the law. But the original purpose of humans' creation of law was to uphold justice. In court, if a person was known to be guilty of a heinous crime, but there was no evidence to prove that he was guilty, could he not be sentenced? This was a philosophical question. Chun Zhao wasn't a philosopher. He couldn't explain whether he should uphold justice or the law. He only knew that he should do what he had to do. As the saying went, it was up to God to decide if you were guilty or not. Chun Zhao was only responsible for sending you to God. But one thing Chun Zhao was sure of was that Tiger couldn't see God. Just then, Chun Zhao received a call. It was from a stranger. Hello, is this Mr. Chun? Who is it? Chun Zhao didn't like strangers who pretended to be mysterious. They would instinctively make others hostile, like Chun Zhao. Chapter 2451. Amadeko Pavich. How may I help you? Mr. Chun, can you please stop being a busybody? It's for the good of your former disciple and for you and your family. You've investigated me, right? How much do you know about me? Madeko Pavich chuckled. Rich, very rich. What else? Seems like my investigation isn't comprehensive enough. There's still something I haven't found out. Madeko Pavich smiled, but he didn't take it to heart. But please understand that some power can't be compensated with money or the power behind you. I'm looking forward to it. I hope you can show me what power money can't compensate for. I hope you won't regret it. I'll say the same to you. Didi, after school, go home with your siblings, Chun Zhao informed Didi. Didala was the oldest of the kids, and he was a steady person. Chun Zhao trusted him. Uncle, we've been at school for a few days. You're only concerned about our safety today? Don't tell me you've made some new enemies recently? Asked Didira, speechlessly. That's the essence of the word. Which warrior is it? To Didi, anyone who dared to go against his uncle was definitely a warrior, especially someone who dared to threaten his family. Even the word warrior wasn't enough to describe their bravery. He hoped that there would be no war in heaven. After informing Didira, Chun Zhao called West. West, what are Helis and Jalanash doing these days? Helis just came out of the Tower of Trials. She seems to have made some progress on level 4. She seems to have a good chance of passing it, West said. West said, Jalanash should still be in the city. She went shopping with Giselle. Where are they shopping? Beverly Street. Perfect. Tell her to go to Angel Beach. Someone might want to harm my family. I'm afraid that Phalai will be in danger. Also, tell Helis to go to Mountain Elementary and secretly protect my kids. Guild leader, who is it? West immediately lowered his voice. I don't know yet. There's a guy called Madeko Pavich. I don't know his background yet. There's still a few kids at home. I can't leave, so I can only ask Jalanash and Hallies to protect them. Guild leader, if we encounter an ambush, I can kill all the enemies, right? Of course, Chun Zhao replied. Okay, I know what to do. Hallies hung up the phone. This basically gave Helith the power to fire as many times as she wanted. As long as he was judged as an enemy, she had the right to execute him. Normally, Chun Zhao wouldn't give him such authority. One reason was that Helith was even more murderous than Chun Zhao. On the other hand, some people didn't necessarily deserve to die. However, this was a special time, because someone claimed to be threatening his family. At this time, there was no time to distinguish between death and death. As for Jalanash on the other side, Chun Zhao didn't even need to say anything. If a normal person forced Jalanash to attack Nash, Chun Zhao wouldn't even need to say anything. In that case, the result would be no different from firing limitlessly. If Jalanash's elemental magic hit an ordinary person, it would be like being hit by a missile. Kids, do you remember me? Sister Helith. Didala was the first to recognize her. Helith forced a strange smile with difficulty. Not bad, you still remember me. But Illich, Binance, Ferentia, and Kilo all remembered Helith too. He remembered this little sister who was full of Gothic style. Helith's style was too obvious and left a deep impression on them. But Hallie's was also the type that came with a lightning rod. Not to mention children, even adults would automatically keep a respectful distance from her. Even when facing Chun Zhao's kids, Helith only smiled perfunctorily. Your uncle told me to take you home, Helith said. Let's go. Get in my car. The kids looked at Helith's car. It was an expensive Lincoln Navigator. But what really caught their attention wasn't the car's price. Instead, it was the super personalized paint on the car. There were 7 pictures. They were the 7 disasters: pain, disease, suffering, torture, plague, death, and despair. Each picture was fully integrated with the elements of death and terror. In particular, the paint used in some places was very special. It was a fluorescent coating. For example, the picture on the back of the car was the plague sermon. If someone shone a beam at Helith's car from the back, they would definitely see a strange scene. Hi, Phalai. Jalanash came to the Coastal Rescue Team's headquarters. Jalanash, why are you here? Phalai saw Giselle behind Jalanash and greeted her as well. Because she often went to the supernatural organization, she was basically familiar with the people there. The president asked me to protect you. Huh? Is that necessary? I can't help it. As a spiritualist family, I often get involved in some unnecessary trouble with my family. Jalanash shrugged helplessly. There were rules in the spiritual world that people might not be able to protect their family. But sometimes, it wasn't that people wanted things to escalate. It was just that things got out of control. Jolene, Nash, and Giselle sent Phalai home safe and sound. As soon as they got out of the car, Horace arrived in her cool and strange car. When they arrived, Chun Zhao had already prepared a scrumptious dinner in the yard. Everyone, including Giselle, was asked to stay for dinner. Of course, Chun Zhao didn't just ask them to stay for dinner. In the next few days, they would probably stay with Phalai to work and escort Chun Zhao's children to and from school. Chun, what's going on? Phalai asked at the dining table. Chun Zhao rarely arranged for people from the supernatural organization to protect his family. Chun Zhao told her about Tiger. Tiger? How did that kid become like this? President, if you need, I can send that guy to God for you. Chun Zhao glanced at Helith. No need. That's not my plan. It was very easy to destroy a person physically. For Chun Zhao, Helith, and Jalanash, it wasn't difficult at all. A spell could solve it. But Chun Zhao didn't just want to kill Tiger. It wasn't simply justice. It was revenge. Chapter 2452. A passenger plane landed at Los Angeles Airport. A dozen strangely dressed passengers walked out of the exit. They looked like they walked out of the Hogwarts Academy in the movie Harry Potter. Of course, the way others looked at them was as if they were cosplaying as Hogwarts magicians. They were already used to this kind of look. So they looked calm, and they responded to other people's requests to take photos with them. When they walked out of the exit, someone went up to them. Amson, Mr. Medico Pavich, may the immortal king bless you. Among the group of Hogwarts mages, an old man looked at the person who greeted them. It's a pleasure for you to visit. Medico Pavich looked at Hamson Deller. They were all real mages, although they did not come from Hogwarts Academy. But magic existed in this world. All kinds of unimaginable magic shocked Medico Pavich when he first came into contact with them. It was then that Medico Pavich came into contact with a group of mages from England and got to know them. They came from an organization called the Immortal Crown, an extremely ancient organization. But although they were ancient, they were very poor. And because of the lack of funds, their members dwindled. Until Medico Pavich provided them with funds. Their precarious life was finally alleviated. Of course, Medico Pavich did not help them unconditionally. When Medico Pavich needed help, they would also need to help him solve any problems he faced. The group of mages, who had long been afraid of poverty, did not care about the rules of the spiritual world. Perhaps they did not realize that they had been controlled by Medico Pavich from the very beginning. Now, they even relied on the money provided by Medico Pavich for their daily necessities. Of course, even if they realized this problem, they did not want to go back to the past. When Medico Pavich first came into contact with them, they lived in the depths of a forest that was rarely visited by humans. There were 52 of them when Medico Pavich unwittingly broke into their hideout. They were psychics who hid in the mountains to avoid World War II in the last century. Most of them were second or third generation, and a few were fourth or fifth generation. Initially, there were a few hundred spiritualists. However, after decades of reproduction, not only did they not grow stronger, but their numbers were also decreasing. It was mainly because they had too little contact with the outside world. Their daily necessities were basically grown and bred by themselves. Their only means of transportation was an old car from the 1930s. They had not been in contact with the outside world for decades. Their knowledge was seriously out of touch with the outside world. They had almost returned to primitive society before Medico Pavich had entered the forest in which they lived. Due to the lack of living resources and poor medical standards, they could only rely on magic to cure all of their illnesses. However, most of the time, magic could not cure all diseases. Take appendicitis, for example. In the outside world, a small surgery could solve the problem. But there, it was a fatal disease. They had no idea what was going on outside. They still thought that the outside world was still in an era of war. This kind of understanding was not only out of touch, but also a lack of knowledge. This caused them to be unable to survive alone, even after Mediko Pavic brought them out of the forest. Of course, another reason was that Mediko Pavic deliberately made them think so in order to better control these magicians. All of their knowledge had already fallen behind decades of time. After all, the speed of development and changes in the past few decades were much greater than the development of human civilization in the past thousands of years, especially since almost all of the first generation had passed away. Now, there were not many of the second generation left. The incomplete inheritance of knowledge caused them to have an incomplete understanding of the outside world. As a result, they developed a sense of dependence on Mediko Pavic. Mediko Pavic easily controlled them. At least, most of the members of the Immortal Crown had become his servants. The older second and third generation were no longer willing to step out of their former seclusion. The fourth and fifth generation were even younger and more willing to see the outside world. Hamson was the only second generation that came out with Mediko Pavic. However, he was already very old. He was already 85 years old. In fact, he was already born before his parents lived in seclusion. Compared to the others, he understood the outside world better. Of course, he yearned for the outside world more than the others. So, he could be considered a first generation. His magic power was the strongest among the other magicians. Hamson knew that Mediko Pavic was using them. However, he did not care. Compared to the lack of resources and monotonous life in the seclusion, the outside world was much more interesting. There was also the guarantee of a stable life. Moreover, the tasks that Mediko Pavic gave them were very simple. "You guys are really eye-catching," Mediko Pavic said with a smile. "Although the outside world is much more interesting than the seclusion, I'm still more used to the robe of order." The magicians called their robes the robe of order. The robe of order was also a magic item that could provide them with magic power. Of course, for Hamson and the others who had lived in seclusion for a long time, the robe of order gave them a sense of superiority. Perhaps due to the influence of the movies, when they appeared in public wearing the robe of order, they felt proud and honored. The fanaticism and adoration of ordinary people made them feel honored and proud. "What do you want us to do this time?" Hamson asked. "Mr. Mediko, please give us some challenging tasks," a young magician of the fourth generation said with a somewhat arrogant tone. "Yes, I hope this task can be a little difficult. At least when we travel, we will feel a little bit of pressure. Although I want to give you some challenging tasks, you guys are born extraordinary. Perhaps only saving the world will make you feel pressured." Can you find us a task to save the world?" "Me too. But first, we need to live a better life before saving the world." Chapter 2453. Mediko Pavic led everyone into the car. Then he took out a stack of photos. "These are your goals. Bring them all to me." "There are a few kids here," Hamson said. "After this mission, I'll provide you with at least a year's worth of funds. You should also have your own headquarters in the outside world. Don't you think so, Hamson?" Hamson thought for a while and nodded. "You're right." As for the question that made him hesitate before, after Mediko Pavic stated his conditions, it wasn't that important anymore. "Rest for the night. Tomorrow, I'll give you more information about your goals. Finish the mission as soon as possible. Then you can have fun here. I've already prepared many projects for you." "Mr. Chun, do you really have a way to help my arms recover their strength?" Sinja asked hesitantly. Every time he asked his doctor when he would treat his arms, the doctor would reply that Chun Zhao would be in charge of his arms. All the attending doctors told him that Chun Zhao was in charge of treating his hands. They weren't in charge of treatment or examination. It seemed that the doctors in the hospital had blind confidence in Chun Zhao. He'd also learned from the doctors that Chun Zhao wasn't just rich. Not only was Chun Zhao rich, but he was also a doctor with incredible medical skills. Sinja didn't really want to believe it. Doctors could become rich, but they probably couldn't become very rich. At least, this was his understanding. But then he thought of the contract Chun Zhao had given him. If Chun Zhao couldn't treat his arms, then the contract might cause Chun Zhao's investment to turn into a loss. Thus, Sinja was more willing to believe that Chun Zhao really had a way. Of course, hope was one thing, but reality was another. He was an athlete. He knew where the current bottleneck of medical technology was. He'd seen too many people in the same profession retire from the stage due to various injuries. For example, his current injuries. His arms felt like they'd been cut off. The neural networks in his arms had been cut open. There was technology to reattach arms, but it was similar to grafting or reconnecting a cable after it was cut off. If the cable was pulled with enough force, the reconnection point would definitely be the point where the cable was reconnected. The connection of the neural network was actually a regrowth, not a connection of the original neural network. This was also the reason why the arm and palm could not be as nimble as before even after the arm was reattached, even after rehabilitation training. There was also the fracture and reconnection of the bones, which was also unable to withstand the initial force. Because the crack had always been there, the nerve structure in the bones could not be completely repaired. Just because two pieces of iron were glued together didn't mean that they could become one. At least from a mechanical point of view, two pieces of iron were always two units of force, not one. Therefore, Syndicate had always been skeptical about whether Chun Zhao could cure him. Chun Zhao looked at the report in his hand. He already had a clear plan for Syndicate's treatment. He was no stranger to this. Tiger had suffered the same injury back then. The two were almost exactly the same. Physical healing methods and the perfect potion. In terms of physical treatment, it referred to surgery. "I'll arrange surgery for you tonight," Chun Zhao said. Of course, if possible, he didn't want to operate at night either. But the hospital's operating theaters were full. Usually, it had to be arranged at least a week in advance before it could be arranged. Chun Zhao's request to use the operating theater was too sudden. Chun Zhao had a good relationship with the director and the major shareholders, but he couldn't delay the surgery of the other people he'd arranged. Therefore, it was arranged at night. This time could be squeezed out. Without this relationship, it would be difficult to arrange. How much can my hands recover? According to my plan, of course in the best condition. But when it comes to surgeries, no one can guarantee anything. Chun Zhao was confident, but it was too unrealistic. Therefore, Chun Zhao wouldn't give any promises. After arranging the things before and after surgery for Syndicate, Chun Zhao went to rest on a chair outside. Even a doctor wouldn't like the smell in the hospital, especially since he hadn't worked in a hospital for a long time. The chemical smell in the corridor stimulated Chun Zhao's sense of smell. Sometimes, having a sharp sense of smell was a burden. Just like animals, Chun Zhao had a new understanding of it. Since the evolution in the barren land, Chun Zhao's sense of smell had improved a lot. It still couldn't reach the super sense of smell of cats and dogs, but it still gave Chun Zhao a certain amount of trouble. If it was a normal smell, it would be fine. However, some smells were pungent. The pungent effect was also magnified by hundreds of times. For example, the smell in the hospital. Chun Zhao felt like he was soaking in a bathtub filled with medicine. Also, cats and dogs, for example, knew how to distinguish and block this kind of smell. But Chun Zhao didn't know. He couldn't block this sense of smell. Of course, while Chun Zhao couldn't block his sense of smell, his tolerance was stronger. He wasn't like cats and dogs, whose sense of smell would collapse after being sprayed with perfume. At most, Chun Zhao would feel nauseous. Plus, the pungent smell could be blocked. Breathing fresh air outside would make him feel happy. Of course, the happiest thing was that two people had come to relieve his pressure. The two people had come to relieve his pressure. Two young people wearing magic robes appeared before Chun Zhao. It was as if they were afraid that others wouldn't know who they were. In his hand was a wizard's magic staff, like those in the Harry Potter movies. "Sir, come with us." Chun Zhao raised his head and looked at the two young people. This pair of man and woman seemed to be a perfect match. "What's your name?" "I'm the Immortal Crown, Sark." "Arsini," the young woman said. Chun Zhao yawned. "Sit with me for a while." "Sir, we don't have time to waste with you." "You better." Arsini pointed her staff at Chun Zhao. Chun Zhao reached out and snapped Arsenal's wand in an instant. You! Arsini stared at her staff in shock. Damn! Sark suddenly pointed the staff at Chun Zhao. Chapter 2454. Shape-shifting. Sark cast shape-shifting on Chun Zhao. Shape-shifting could be used on oneself or on others. Shape-shifting on others was very advanced, because one's own magic wouldn't resist oneself. But when used on others, there would be resistance. Even if one used it on a normal person, there was a high chance of resistance. As for using it on Chun Zhao's magic resistance had almost broken through the sky. His current magic resistance wasn't absolutely immune to magic. Basically, even an advanced spell wouldn't have any effect on him. Before Sark's magic could land on Chun Zhao, it had already dissipated into nothingness. Chun Zhao knew what was going on, but Sark didn't. Although he used shape-shifting, there was a certain chance of resistance. But he thought that his shape-shifting skill was almost perfect. Chun Zhao's resistance was just a coincidence, a result of luck. If a regular spiritualist mastered shape-shifting and cast it on a normal person, there was a 50% chance of resistance. But if it was Sark, he knew some tricks of shape-shifting. Thus, his shape-shifting had a 90% success rate on normal people. Just now, Chun Zhao had resisted shape-shifting because Sark had stepped on his shit. He felt that Chun Zhao wouldn't be so lucky the second time. If Chun Zhao knew what Sark was thinking, or if Sark himself had studied probability, he definitely wouldn't agree with Sark's opinion. It was like flipping heads and tails of a coin. In terms of probability, if you flipped heads the first time, it didn't mean that you would flip tails the second time. The probability of flipping heads the second time was still 50%. Shape-shifting. Chun Zhao still wasn't moved. You missed again? Again, shape-shifting. 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 Suddenly, Chun Zhao stood up and covered Sark's mouth with one hand. Shoo! Sit down. Sit with me for a while, or I'll break your jaw. Chun Zhao looked at Sark. Do you understand me? If you do, I'll let go. Sark nodded. But the moment Chun Zhao let go, Sark suddenly pointed at Chun Zhao. Blind. Who? Chun Zhao punched Sark's stomach. Sark was already kneeling on the ground, his body spasming slightly. Then, Chun Zhao looked at Arsenal. Arsenal was too scared to move. These two were pure rookies. This was Chun Zhao's impression of them. Let's not talk about their strength first. At the very least, their reactions were too abnormal. Chun Zhao looked at the two. Sit down, or I'll send you to the ward of this hospital. Both of them sat down obediently. Were you sent by Madek Pavich? The two of them remained silent. They seemed to think that this could negate the question. All right, I'll take that as a silent agreement. Do you know what a police officer's favorite way to interrogate a criminal is? Chun Zhao asked calmly. The two still didn't speak, but Chun Zhao chattered on. The police's favorite way of interrogation is to face two criminals, because for every question, if one of the criminals answers first, then his punishment will be reduced. In contrast, the second criminal's punishment will be increased accordingly. Chun Zhao looked at the two magicians who were sitting by his side obediently. He put his hands on their shoulders. So, next time when you answer my question, I hope you could be the first to answer. Sark and Arsenal lowered their heads, but they secretly exchanged glances. Clearly, they weren't going to cooperate with Chun Zhao. Chun Zhao suddenly increased the strength of his hands. He grabbed their collarbones and pulled. Crack! With their screams, their collarbones were dislocated at the same time. Their left and right shoulders collapsed at the same time. You can refuse, but trust me. I'll make all your bones leave their original positions. Other than you, do you have any other companions? Chun Zhao asked. Crack! The two screamed again. There are 206 bones in a human body. This means that you can experience 206 dislocations. Sark and Arsenal's faces paled. They hadn't experienced much pain. They didn't know how to face pain. I'll ask again. Do you have any other companions? Yes. This time, it was Arsenal who answered. Good, Chun Zhao said, satisfied. This is a good start. Arsenal. Sark screamed, even more painfully than before. This time, Chun Zhao crushed Sark's bones. Worse punishment. How many of you are there? 18. This time, Shaq's team leader replied. Sark's betrayal was even more justified. Arsenal was the one who betrayed them first. They were two immature kids. This was what Chun Zhao had learned from them. Basically, in less than 10 questions, he had already figured out the color of their underwear today. West, come over to my side and bring 2 people back. Didn't you say that you'd let us go if we answered your questions? If you didn't force me to attack, I would have let you go, but you forced me to use violence. You lost your last chance. From the moment they'd appear before Chun Zhao, he hadn't planned on letting them go. Only they naively believed Chun Zhao's words. They thought that Chun Zhao had really planned on letting them go. What a joke. These two were real information. With West in charge, he would definitely be able to obtain more valuable information. Why let them go now? It wouldn't be easy to find someone so easy to deal with. When they were sent to West's car, they wanted to resist again. But now, they didn't even have the strength to lift their wands. Chun Zhao acted as if he'd done something insignificant. Chun Zhao had also lowered Madai Pavich's strength. He'd thought that Madai Pavich was a person from the supernatural world. To his disappointment, Madai Pavich was just a normal person. His personal development was also combined with Sark's and Arsenal's testimonies. It was obvious that he'd only developed after encountering the people from the Immortal Crown and through their supernatural power. Every time he encountered a problem he couldn't solve, he'd ask the Immortal Crown for help. The Immortal Crown clearly relied on Madai Pavich's funds. The Immortal Crown had been established after spiritualists who'd been living in seclusion came out. Their foundation was too shallow. One could even say that they had no foundation at all. They weren't like those more successful organizations who'd found a suitable direction after adapting for a long time. Secondly, the Immortal Crown's strength. They actually had about the same number of members as the supernatural organization. But their individual strength was a mystery. Even Chun Zhao couldn't tell what Arsenal and Sark meant by powerful. You're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.